Here we are. What's up, everybody? Emil Werstler here. This is JamPlay.com. We're doing this live stream thing today, and I'm kind of getting warmed up, sitting around. We're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff, similar to a jam chat, but more focused. We've got a bit of we're on a schedule here, so you can see the guide at JamPlay.com to see what I'm going to talk about. It's going to be a lot of Pentatonic stuff, and there's not going to be a lot of insane noodling. You know, there's a lot of folks here in the chat, and this is the whole chat really, and the whole live event is all about just learning the guitar, learning how to practice, which, believe it or not, is something that a lot of players don't really know how to do, even really experienced professional players. They just don't really know how to just practice, you know. It's definitely an art form. And they say practice makes perfect, and it's very true. I also find myself, you know, slacking in the practice department sometimes, but it takes discipline. It takes showing up an hour early and getting your fingers warm, you know, get your blood flowing. You're kind of like, when you play the guitar, you got to kind of treat yourself like an athlete in the sense to where you got to get your blood flowing, you got to get it flowing through your body, you got to get your mind right, you got to get into it. So, I don't know, hopefully you'll find something useful, even if it's one small morsel of information. So anyways, it's good to be here, and I'm going to do a little bit of noodling. Speaking of warming up, I'm going to do a little bit more noodling, and then we're going to play some tracks for you guys, okay? So here we go. All right, so here we go. Let's get started, and I'm going to play, this is kind of like an original composition, if you want to call it that I threw together. It's a minor blues, and I wanted to do something different than just kind of, you know, minor 1, minor 4, 5. So hopefully you guys will dig this. It's kind of groovy, and here we go. Okay, so that song was a minor blues, believe it or not. You know, when the guys from JamPlay hit me up to come out here and do this live event, I figured why not take a minor blues and do something a little different. So that was actually like A minor, D minor, E7. So I hope you guys dug that. There's a lot of improv going on there. Kind of wrote it at the last minute, but hey, it's fun. It's got a groove to it. And yeah, so if you guys have any questions, by the way, you may not think so, but I could definitely hear you. I could definitely see you. And we got a few more tracks to play here. And this may sound a little familiar to you. We got got to play this nice classical guitar here. Obviously, it's not a classical guitar, but... So yeah, any questions you guys have, shoot them at me. And I can actually hear and see you, believe it or not. Okay, can we get some gain there? Maestro? And this is a song off of a record that came out about, I don't know, what's it been, like 2 years now? It's... Now we're talking. It's a song called All That's Left Is Blood by the band Chimera. Here we go. All right, so that was All That's Left Is Blood by Chimera. Fun little song to play. And let me know if you guys have any questions. You could definitely send us questions, and I'll be able to answer them. And we got about 2 more songs left. And yeah, so here's another Chimera tune, another detuned song. And it's a song called I Despise. And it's low-tuned, it's fun, and here it is. Good times. All right, so we have a couple of questions. And what do we have? First question.
Okay, first question from Victor.
Victor?
Can you go over the tunings for the last 2 songs?
Sure. Okay, so Victor wants to know what tunings are going on for these last 2 songs. And it's basically drop D for a 7-string guitar, which makes it drop A. So it's a standard tuned guitar. I'm not primarily a 7-string player. It's not really my bag. But I do play the 7-string because obviously, I'm not going to say no to a gig. And I think it's at this point, it's a modern thing. It's now there's like 8, 9, 10 strings. So 7-string is kind of like the 6-string now. It's more common, especially in the heavier music. So I don't really play the 7th string very much, the lowest string, which is an A if you drop it. But I wanted the ability to create riffs that were more moving, and basically you're playing an A minor if you play an open. So it's basically E, A, D, G, B, E with a low, low A on the top, which makes it cool because you have 2 low A's as well as 2 E's. So it makes it a little bit easier to manage, and it's fun stuff, It's definitely a fun tuning to play in, so try that out.
Great. Okay, we have a second question here from Carlos.
Carlos has a question.
How do you make those squeals sound so perfect?
Okay, squeals. So, cool, we still got gain. The squeals, there's 2 types of squeals that I'm kind of doing here, squeals. Basically, there is that kind of thing. It's a pinch harmonic. It's you'll hear it all over metal, and what you're doing there, that's the tough one. You have to have a decent amount of gain, and as you could hear, I was on the neck pickup, and it's actually really hard. It doesn't sound right on the neck pickup. It doesn't really kind of push out. So if you're on the bridge pickup, it definitely... What you're doing is you're pinching the string. You're actually playing through the string, and you're touching the flesh of your finger onto the string almost at the exact same time as the pick hits the string, and it kind of creates a pinch harmonic, and that's one of them. The other one is more of like a Dimebag Darrell kind of thing, although I don't really do it like he does. I try to get a real noisy one, and what I do is I hit the harmonics, and with my tremolo bar, so the in-between harmonics on the guitar, like between a 3rd and the 5th fret, I like it real grimy and nasty like that. So with enough gain, you don't have to have too much gain. I usually just bang out a few harmonics, just like natural harmonics, and then that kind of leads me into the next riff or whatnot. So try that out. The hardest one is definitely the pinch harmonic. It's tough, but if you know your guitar really well, you're on the neck pickup, and a little bit of overdrive helps. I usually turn on overdrive when I do it and then turn it off before it ends to make it kind of pop. That's just something I've done from playing live on stage without sound guys. I usually have a boost pedal. That way when the sound guy's not paying attention, doesn't matter, you're still going to be heard, right? Which is the most important part, is to be heard, for better or for worse. Anyways, good luck with that.
Okay, Emil, we have a few more questions here. Next one is from Dawson. What kind of pick are you using?
Okay, so I'm using... this is actually pretty hilarious. I use in-tune picks exclusively, and my co-guitar player in Chimera, I'm actually playing his picks because I found he was using these oversized kind of jazz picks, and these are the same thickness as the yellow Dunlops, which is what I played for years and years. Because I played really, really hard, and so I play with a bit thinner of a pick, so there's give, and the point really helps, although they do grind down pretty quickly, but we should all know the carpet trick. Do we all know the carpet trick? Carpet trick's basically where when you play a pick and there's grooves in it and it's grabbing a string and it's impossible to keep playing with, you just reach down to the carpet, I'm not kidding, and you just kind of like smooth it out, which is what I'm doing right now because mine's kind of got grooves. And yeah, it cleans it up, and it gets rid of the ridges on the edges. And So that's the kind of pick that I use. I dig the jazz picks, but I like the oversized ones. The small ones, I can't really dig in. I've been known to kind of choke up on my pick, kind of like a baseball bat, I'm choking up, and there's very little of a very small amount of pick actually coming out, So that gives me more control and stuff like that.
Cool. Okay, the next question is from GTS. Which PRS guitar style is your favorite?
Oh, good. That's a good question. My favorite PRS guitar style is the hollow body. Anything that's a hollow body. This is a special guitar, not because it looks cool. I think it looks cool. I think it looks nice and classy. It's got a top on the back too, because the front's a spruce. Spruce is a really good, brilliant top. It's basically going to project. It's brilliant, There's a lot of kind of guitars that are scoop sounding. There's a lot of guitars that are bassy and things like this. I go for brilliant, which is why I play the PRS guitars, because they kind of have a real rich tone. This is a J15, and this was built for me by Paul, and it's just a really cool guitar because what I do, I rarely play plugged into an amp when I'm walking around the house or backstage or in any environment where I'm focusing on the guitar. I rarely even play with an amp. It started out with understanding the fact that you should always play as clean as possible to where you can hear all the notes divided. And it started there, and I would just play clean. And then I would take it. A lot of it's just due to laziness and just the willingness to want to play. So I grab a guitar, and it's hollow, so you can actually hear it unplugged. And I like the hollow bodies as well because the DI, which is basically the signal coming out of the guitar, it sounds airy. It does not sound the same as a regular guitar. So it's got a bit of a thumbprint, I try to go for different, which is why I've kind of played in metal bands with hollow bodies for so long. I just feel like when I see it, it feels like me. I've got a lot of solid body guitars like this 7-string here, which is this is a custom built 7-string custom 24. It's swamp ash with maple. And but for the most part, home for me is a hollow body. And it's really light too. You got to watch out when you're playing this on stage and you switch guitars and play a solid body. You notice just how heavy it is. So thanks for the question.
Okay, next question is from Telmo. Any tips to palm mute on Floyd Rose? I always end up pushing the bridge down and changing the pitch of whatever I'm playing.
The older I get, the more I realize, coming from a very high-strung person, I'm not a jerk, but I'm just very up here. I talk a lot, I walk a lot, I'm always on my feet, and I'm kind of a nervy dude in general. So what I find is that for intonation's sake, which has a lot to do with your Floyd Rose, your left hand's grip, the setup of your guitar, those are the three things that I do feel like are very integral to having a good in-tune guitar tone. I find that you have to relax. The way you hold your pick, the way you hold the guitar, anything that you do, whether you're driving a car down the street, anything that you do, I find that when you pace yourself and you're relaxed and you're loose, and you're not tense, you're going to have an easier time doing anything. And staying in tune definitely falls in that category. So my advice to you is keep playing that guitar, wear a strap, stand up if that's what you do. If you play primarily sitting down, then sit down. And when you play, just be sensitive to it, experiment. But most importantly, you got to relax. Make sure it's not your left hand doing the death grip. There's a lot of amazing guitar players throughout history that just kind of out of tune because they have a death grip on the guitar. And that's fine, but I find that your left hand, once again, the bridge, the setup of the guitar, and being relaxed is what I would suggest to you. So always experiment, and when you palm mute on a Floyd Rose guitar, you just got to be sensitive to it. I mean, I can confess, I've had to play on records with Floyd Rose guitars. Floyd Roses are not my bag. I also play with a floating tremolo. It goes up and down. So if I rest my hand on it too hard, you'll hear me go out of tune. It happens sometimes. When I'm recording in the studio and I've got to play a guitar with a Floyd Rose on it, there is an adjustment period. So you're not alone here. That's very typical. I say just become one with your instrument, just spend some time on it. And always experiment. take notes, always try to reinvent yourself, and eventually you're going to find that you're going to have the opposite problem, where when you grab a regular guitar without a Floyd Rose, you're going to feel weird there. So, so good luck. Thanks for the question.
Great. All right, let's move on to your next song, and we'll look for more questions later.
We need some clean tone here. We're going to go to some clean tone. And so this song is another thing that I love to do. I always, in the jam chats on JamPlay, in my private lessons online or at the house, or even when I'm just jamming with friends, it's very wise to have a progression that you can build on. That's common. I do enjoy technical playing, but I do feel like a great catalyst to run all of the things you work on over would be the blues, a 1-4-5. So we're going to actually talk about that a lot today. And this tune is just the same thing. These guys hit me up to come do this live event, and I figured, why not do like an acoustic kind of gypsy jazz thing where it's kind of like a up-tempo sort of swing with the acoustic guitar, and it's a basic 1-4-5, but it's very embellished. You're going to see a lot of moves like this. You're going to hear a lot of stuff like that. So here is, with no particular title, here is a basic 1-4-5 done in the style of like a Django Reinhardt. So here we go. Okay. And you know what? What I just did, I just played through that twice. I do that like first thing in the morning with coffee. When everybody leaves the house and it's like me and the cats, I usually shoo them away. And I sit down and I don't let myself think about it. I try to capture a moment in time, just like now. I'm improvising. I'm totally making this stuff up. So it's for better or for worse. There's going to be mistakes there, but you know what? You have to kind of take those mistakes. You have to play with no fear and just let it all hang out. And what I do in the morning is I get up and I have coffee, and once I'm fully aware, fully awake, I'll put on like a track like that, or I'll just sit there. Usually I play with no accompaniment, and I try to make music. I try to sit there and force music out of myself, and I don't stop. If I make a mistake, you got to keep going. And then usually the second time around, I'll play it 2 or 3 times. Sometimes I record myself just on my, my MacBook. I'll just hit photo booth, and it captures a moment in time where that's what you are right then. And if you get used to recording yourself and get used to being honest with yourself, which is a big one, you can take notes and you can really see what your problems are. I can tell you right there, about midway into that, I was kind of noodling. I was on autopilot. I had a really good grasp earlier on with restraint. I was playing more rhythmic. I was leaving space. And then I went to my default mode. So, whenever I see myself play on a video, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at myself and go, okay, like, what am I doing that's not me? What can I fix? What can I work on? And, you could always use guitar lessons. You could always, get on JamPlay.com. You could always look things up, take private instruction. But at the end of the day, you have to really look at what you're doing and be honest with yourself and go, you know what, my vibrato sucks. You know what, I got to stop playing fast and bend a note here or there. And then you work that stuff in, and then the next day or the next week, you do the same thing when you get up in the morning. Do not let yourself play over again. Don't try to do what you did. If you really nail it, don't try to do what you did. Just take it from the top once again, play through it. And what's going to wind up happening is you're training yourself to improvise. You're training yourself to just live in the moment and let it all hang out and have no fear. Because when you have, if you're shaken and you're thinking too much, you're not going to sound as good. Just like the gentleman earlier that asked about the Floyd Rose, and I suggested relaxing. Relaxing is the key to improvisation. If somebody runs up to you and starts, screaming and yelling, stressed out, you're going to be, whoa, slow down. What are you talking about? If you're in a car and you're late and you're in a hurry, that's when you get into a wreck, And it's the same thing with guitar. You have to really pull back, just relax, take it for what it is, and then make music. And, who cares how you sound? As long as you know that you sound great, as long as you are honest with yourself, then you're going to always improve. So that's a really good question. Okay.
Okay, we have a few more questions for you, Emil. The next one is from Cameron. When will your new CD be coming out, and can you tell us about it?
Yeah. Cameron, that's a really good question from Cameron. I wonder if I know that Cameron. I think I may know that Cameron. I've been working on a CD for about, CD. I've been working on an 8-track cassette. I've been working on, and I don't want to call it a solo CD because it's serious. It's not like this guy from this band is doing this like noodly, shreddy CD. To be honest with you, I do not like guitar music. As a matter of fact, as a main instrument, I don't really like the guitar. All I listen to is like, good songs. A lot of it's electronic music. I love Depeche Mode. Like, I love the harmony of, there's a lot of stuff I listen to. Movie soundtracks, Hans Zimmer, like, a lot of stuff, a lot of vocalists, a lot of Bjork. So I've been in these bands, for the past like 10 years where everybody's kind of looking at me to be this like, shred guy. And that, I'm sure you've heard many guitar players say it, like, I can't stand that term, I naturally talk a lot, I walk a lot, I play fast naturally. It comes naturally to me. And it's going to be my downfall if I keep going, because I feel like I have taken it on recordings and live to the ceiling. I've hit the ceiling. So I've been working on this project, we'll call it, for about 3 years now. And it's all me. I didn't have to compromise. I'm very proud of my work I did in my bands. Any band I've been in, Doth, Chimera, Emil Werstler, all this stuff. But when you're writing songs with people and you're in a band, it's about getting it done. And a lot of times there's like a tune that you would never write. You would never write something like that winds up on a record that people think is your vision. So it is your vision and you're proud of it, but the issue is that you're compromising with yourself. And I don't look at myself as a guitar player, as just a guitar player. I've always stressed the importance of having an identity and writing music. To me, I would give all this away if I had to, just to be able to write music, So this CD, this record or this project is a vehicle to correct all the things that I feel that were wrong in every band I've been in. And I don't mean anything personally towards anybody. I just mean the circumstances. Like, I've been on a lot of labels. I've been on a lot of labels and played a lot of shows, and there's just some things that I feel that should be done differently, especially this day and age. We're talking about the way music is. It's usually, music is something now that comes with something else. Oh, you buy this video, you get a free CD, like, or a jump drive with tunes on it, Music has become this thing that's just sort of not really sought after because it's free these days. That's not the only reason why. I think the artists have a lot to do with it being terrible. So the CD is, or the project is, it's almost done pretty much, and I'm not giving it away. I'm shopping it right now. It's closer to give you a little bit of detail, it's closer to electronic music, not the stuff in the club, like none of that. It is distorted drums, big chord melody, and as a matter of fact, little secret, there's only one guitar playing at a time. I'm treating the guitar like a voice, and the rest of it is synth, drums, and that's really about all the details I want to give away. I've got some players playing on there that are going to blow people's minds that nobody really knows about, and the only other thing I can really add is there's a different, the only person on every song, the only people on every song would be me, the bass player, and the producers, because that's a production team, and every tune has a different drummer. Every tune has a different, musician on it. It's more of a Steely Dan kind of thing. So keep an eye out for that. I'm sure you'll hear about it. It's going to be done right, and I'm excited about it because for the first time in my career, it is me 100%. It sounds like me, and it's not just like faster, harder, louder, faster, harder, louder. I put a lot of thought into it, and I'm proud of it. So you'll all be the first to know when it comes out, for sure. Next question here.
Okay, this question is from Josh. With the work with PRS, especially the Archon, have you and Tremonti been jamming? Any collaboration in the works?
Yeah, I've been close friends with Mark for about. He was when I recorded with Doth down in Florida 8 years ago. He was real close with the studio because he lives down in Orlando or around that area, and it was like, oh yeah, Tremonti lives around here. I'm like, oh really? They're like, yeah, but he's the greatest guy. All he cares about is guitar, and I'm like, really? That's really cool. And then within 2 months, I came into PRS and joined the PRS family, and I flew out to Paul's house to have dinner. At one of the events, and there's Mark, and he just came right up to me and was like, dude, what's up? A super nice guy. And then ever since then, we've hit it off because the guy is a walking guitar show. First of all, he's a real writer, and second of all, he is a legit, when I say legit, the guy breathes guitar. Whenever I get together with him, we're showing each other licks and stuff like that. And so I can't say there's anything totally in the works, but we definitely do love to sit down, talk guitar. We trade licks all the time, and he's a real close friend. And his Tremonti project that's out right now, his band is awesome. Wolfie Van Halen's playing bass for him. My other buddy Eric's playing guitar. And the Alter Bridge stuff with Miles Kennedy is just killer, man. And so, yeah, Tremonti's a great guy. Nothing in the works with him, but we love to sit down and trade licks. So cheers to Tremonti.
Okay, from Michael. I've been playing 40 years. I'm an accomplished rhythm guy. What is the biggest issue for me to work on to be a lead guy?
So this is a really honest question, and I think that I commend you for just being straightforward and being honest. Because a lot of people they won't really admit that I'm good at this, but I have issues with this. So. I'm actually I'll give you two answers to that question. The first answer is a direct answer, which is what do you find to be the biggest obstacle? Not overthinking. Caring about what everybody else thinks. You could be the best guitar player in the world, but sometimes in this day and age, you're going to be on video making a mistake here or there. Everybody's human, In the 80s, you can control your media. You could shoot a video, and that's the only thing people know of you. So if you're a shred god in that video that never makes mistakes, that's what people are going to think of you. But this day and age, if you walk outside the house, you're on video. So I find it very important to not care at all what anybody thinks. You'll find the most successful people that do what they want to do are usually pretty stubborn. Go look at the way that real great musicians behave. They're usually really stubborn, and they kind of have to be that way because if you really do listen to your environment all around you and feel judged, that's going to be the biggest mistake. You're never going to succeed, and you're never going to really be truly happy. So I think the biggest obstacle is the balance of learning the material of what you're going to play and practicing and being that guy and living with it. But on the other hand, really marching to the beat of your own rhythm. I can't really say myself, but from what I hear and the way I was discovered with PRS and a lot of the bands that I work with is I'm a jazz guy, really, because that's what I work on constantly, and I played that over metal. And it was at a time where not a lot of cats did that. That was about 8 years ago, playing a hollow body. And, I have a sound. When you hear me, you know it's me, for better or for worse. Even if you don't like me, you're going to know that it's me. And I tell you what, there's a lot of great players out there that do amazing things, but they sound just like everyone else. So I say, do your thing, sound like you, and who cares what everybody thinks as long as you're happy. And you know what? You're not going to go platinum anyways. Neither am I. So who cares? Right now, it's the Wild West. It's all about art. Second answer to that question is a real quick one. If you rule at rhythm and you've been playing for 40 years, who cares about leads, man? Go be the best rhythm player you can be, because you know why? You're going to get a gig quicker than I will, because when people see what I do, they think I just do that. There's a million guitar players. I get gigs playing bass sometimes more than playing guitar because there's no bass players, right? So hopefully you kind of see what I'm saying there. If you're great at rhythm, go borrow and work on the lead stuff. But man, be the best rhythm player in the world, and you're gonna get a lot further than I will, being the jack of all trades, right? So good luck with that.
Frank Hildenbrand has randomly been selected to win a PRS t-shirt. Which size would you like? We have large, and we have extra large, and we have a medium hoodie.
Okay, Frank Hildebrand has randomly been selected for this shirt or a hoodie, right?
Yeah.
What size do you wear? Medium, large, extra large? Frank Hildebrand, good job. You've been randomly selected.
Okay. Go ahead and, Frank, go ahead and send your information.
Frank, go ahead and send your information to us.
Support@jamplay.com.
You want to send your information to support@jamplay.com. Congratulations. I want one of those. Let me get one of those. Okay, got some more questions coming.
Okay. Fran asks, do players think of the notes when soloing, or do they take notes of a pattern?
Both. It depends on the player. A mature player is going to think of where they're going to land. If you're driving around the street and you have a destination, you're going to get there, you're going to go there, you're going to be on time. If you're lost or wondering about, you're going to be that guy that's like swerving around. The same thing applies to guitar. A lot of players do just play patterns. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I just think that addressing what you're playing over while you're playing over it, and yes, thinking of the notes that you're going to land on, thinking where you're going to begin, that's a sign of maturity. So coming from a guy that learned patterns, I used to always be, and you'll see me always playing octaves, You'll see me do stuff like that, and I'm thinking in octaves, but all those notes, that's just 4 or 5 notes. So there is half my brain is autopilot and doing things that are me, but the other side of my brain is like, where am I going with this? What destination am I going to arrive at? I'm driving a car. Where am I going? I want to have a destination, and that is exactly how I feel that the guitar truly works. Being a faster player, that's more of a frantic player, you're going to have a harder time controlling those notes. But once again, to answer your question, I think it depends on the player. The players that I really enjoy are a perfect balance of guys that have mechanical mastery, soul, as well as they play things that are applicable to the song that they're playing over. And that's why when you hear a great solo, like for instance, Hotel California, if you transcribe that, mark my words, you're going to find the best parts of that solo. The guitar player that's playing is landing on 1, 3, 5, or 7 to that corresponding chord. We're going to talk about some of that today, but that's my take on it. And most solos that fit perfectly to the song and sound awesome, they're playing off a melody that already exists, or they're simply, landing on the right tone. They have a direction. So I hope that helps out and answers your question.
Okay, we have another one from Frank in the same vein. Do you look at the fretboard as a group of patterns or more toward scale tones?
The guitar itself is in design, the guitar itself is a very kind of klutzy instrument. I can play a G right here. I can play it there, I could play it here, I could play it here, I could play it here. That's the same G on, if you notate that G on the staff, that's the same G 5 different ways. The piano, you could just play middle C, there it is, C, you know, bang. So I feel that when it comes to the fretboard, there is, in my mind, a bit of there's a bit of a method there. There's a bit of a protocol. You know, my original instrument is the piano, and I remember as a child learning the C major scale, and you know, you gotta, you know, thumb, index, middle, you gotta pull under your thumb to hit the next note so you have enough fingers. So you're pivoting to have enough fingers to get to the upper register. The guitar's like that, just a bit more extreme. So sometimes I look at patterns. When I'm playing like a run, I'm probably looking at patterns, but where I land, I'm definitely looking for a certain note. With my goal is to really make somebody go, wow, that was awesome. What makes or breaks a player is ending a song, ending a solo or a lick. I mean, you know what? When's the last time you saw a good movie with a real terrible ending? What did you say? You said, that movie sucks. But if it's a bad movie with a great ending, you're like, that movie was okay, you know? But if it's a great movie with an awesome ending, it's a great movie. So think about that. And the same thing applies to any art form. Pentatonic tools. All right, so I want to jump into this. We're going to kind of build throughout the day, especially with the second session. You know, we're going to start off slow, and we're going to take off, and I want to talk about the pentatonic scale and really common ways to use it and what exactly it is. So we're going to start there. Okay. Most importantly, oh yeah, I forgot about this. Most importantly, how to practice with it. Like I said when we opened this whole thing, this is all about practice, and this is all about building your repertoire of stuff. So, okay. So first, what is the pentatonic scale? We all know it is this. Obviously, it's going to be 5 notes, pent, okay? And what are those 5 notes? Well, let's take a trip to the C major scale, where it all begins. C major scale is like the mother of everything in music. It gives birth to minor scales, minor chords, even like diminished stuff. It's really cool, so check it out. We got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're taking the letters and converting them to a number system, and those are your intervals. So C is 1, D is 2, so on and so forth. What they did back in the day is they realized when it had a lot to do with the Depression, where there was a lot of improvisation when people would play for very little money for a long amount of time, and that's where the drum kit, a drum kit used to be 3 people it would take, but then one guy got savvy and went, I'm gonna do this with my foot and this with my hands, so on and so forth, and it gives birth to a whole new modern thing. So with the pentatonic scale, what the guitar players and other instrumentalists did, like saxophone players and stuff like that, is they took out the avoid tones, which is the 4th and the 7th. So the 4th note of the scale and the 7th note of the scale is what we take out to make it a 5-note scale. Why do we take those 2 notes out? Well, let's explore here. Here's your root note. Okay, here's the 4th together. I mean, if you're talking Smoke on the Water, if you're talking Smoke on the Water, that's modern, that's rock and roll. Back in the day when I'm talking, that's seen as very dissonant and tense, and it is dissonant and tense. That's not the most beautiful sound. If you want to see how bad or good something sounds, play Mary Had a Little Lamb with it. Sounds kind of weird, right? Let's take a look at the 7. Oh, wait a minute. I've just found out that Gary, what's your last name? Gary Sousey has won a t-shirt. You guys are taking all my shirts, man. The question is, what size would you like? We have medium, large, and extra large. Oh, wait a minute. We just have large and extra large left. So send an email to support@jamplay.com with your name, address, what size you'd like, and we'll have that shipped out to you. Okay. So back to this pentatonic scale. The 7th, I mean, that doesn't sound very good, in my opinion. Now, So those notes are out of the picture now, and they're dissonant because they are very close to the chord tones. The third and the third is the primary chord tone, and that's a half step away from the fourth, which is why it clashes. The same with the seventh. It's a half step away from the root. So we take that out, and we've come up with this. 1, 2, 3, no 4, 5, 6, no 7, 1. So you might be familiar with this this sound. Okay. Now, there are 5 positions. There's inversions. Without really getting too far into the weeds here of music theory, I'd like to just kind of run through those real quick so you can see my fingering and see the way that I like to finger it. You don't have to do it the way that I do it. There is no right or wrong way. It's all about just taking the step forward, right? So here's starting with the first kind of box here, which is going to be right here. That is a kind of an awkward shape. It's not very common. Like Jimmy Page would use the other box, and you know what I'm talking about, the comfortable box. Okay, moving on to the second inversion. This is the most common one. This is for those of you that do the Cage system, this is the one that's the C bar form. So you can actually see C major inside of it, and even though it's an A minor pentatonic scale, relative major, relative minor. Here is the other box. Here to slow. Right, it's a no matter how awesome you are, we always just like resort to that scale because it's comfortable. Okay, right now the next box kind of a little bit more awkward. Whoops. So I don't use this. I don't really use that one a lot unless I'm kind of passing through it. I'll use the top of it, like the top half of it. Okay. So moving on here. That's the next one. And then finally, I'll play it nice and slow for you. Okay, so that was that all? Yeah, that was all of them. That was it. Then we're back home. So those are the 5 shapes, right? And since we are talking about improving and practicing here, how do we keep track of these, these inversions? What can we do creatively with this stuff to make it more than just that scale that everybody knows? So usually the way that I keep track of inversions is if you look and you learn first of all, learn all 5 of them. Why not? Just jump in head first. The best advice I ever got was, hey, Emil, shut up and just learn this stuff. That's the best advice I ever got. It was actually more like, you do what I say, no questions asked, unless I tell you to ask questions. And that was the best advice I ever got in my life from an instructor a long time ago named Trey Wright. And so how do I keep up with this stuff? Well, if you look at what we're doing here, we started right here. Okay? So let's just call that, it's a G for sure. It's the 5th note in the scale, but that's the note that we're starting on for the pentatonic scale. Since there are only 5 notes in the scale, guess what comes next? The 1. Okay? And then you're going up. So if you keep track of what and where every inversion starts, you're going to start keeping it in order, right? You're going to start, you're going to see that it's just an inversion. And don't be afraid of that word. A lot of people go, inversion. Oh, no. The 5 pentatonic shapes, they're actually inversions. It's the same scale, it's just in a different order. It's starting on a different note. So the sooner you can get your hands on what note it starts on by interval, the easier you're going to be able to kind of just shuffle the deck, right? Okay. So with that being said, I want to talk about something that I run through with all my students, and I love to do this on Jam Chat, and people seem to respond to this. I want to talk about how to take the most common shape, which is we'll call it the Jimmy Page box, and how to get more out of it. In a sense, how do we get as comfortable everywhere else as we do with the Jimmy Page box? So I'm going to walk through a bit of a process. It's a real easy process. I think you all will dig it. It's going to show you how to utilize sliding, and I want you to think about everything that you play after this, and how you can apply this, I guess, protocol to any scale, any arpeggio, anything like that. So here's what we're going to do. I'm taking the first 4 notes of the pentatonic scale. That's A, C, D, E. I'm getting that shape in my head. I'm getting the notes in my head. I'm getting the sound of it in my head. So I'm going to go up an octave, and I'm going to actually play that exact same 4-note shape, we'll call it, right there. So we have this. Okay, then I'm going to go up and play at another octave on the 10th fret. Okay, that's still kind of awkward for me. Let's take a look at that. I'm jumping around. I'm going, okay. You add some stage lights, you add an audience, you're going to blow that. I mean, I'm going to blow it. So what I do is I try to create some sort of finesse in motion. I try to create a smoothness, and the best way to do that is to connect it back with that 5th note. Check this out. So we have first 4 notes, putting the 5th note back in, and we're sliding up to pivot to the next position, just like the piano thing I was talking earlier. Put your thumb underneath the 3rd finger, and you have the rest of your fingers to get in that upper register. So what we have is this. So here it is slow. Okay. So that right there is a horizontal idea. It's not going to be playing over, I wouldn't say that's the end-all be-all. I wouldn't depend on that. I would use that as a backbone to bridge the other pentatonic scales together. So let's just say something like this. That's how you can get from point A to point B. Okay, something like that. Now,
Okay, Abel, I want to jump in here and announce our next giveaway winner.
oh, wait a minute. I've been told we have another giveaway winner. You guys are taking all my stuff. This is getting
Yeah,
ridiculous.
so I've got his name here, and I'll announce it. Anthony Miller, you've won a T-shirt. Please send your size, large or extra large, full name and address to support@jamplay.com. Okay, Anthony Miller, you've won a T-shirt. Okay, back to you, Emil.
Sweet. It's like breaking news. Anthony Miller, congratulations. Okay, so we got the pentatonic scale, and we've got this horizontal idea. Now, let's stop for a second. Because yes, we all know the pentatonic scale. We know it, but do we have it eternalized? You know, this idea, yeah, you can probably do it, but do it. Do it and don't analyze it. And then when you do it, be stubborn about it. Be obsessive. Who cares? Who's going to judge you? Nobody. All you got to do is sit there and ascend and descend this idea. You know, even if you got it, keep going. Play it every day. And then treat it like a scale. Excuse me, treat it like a lick. So what I'm going to do is something like... I could do that all day. I'm not saying, look at me, I can do that all day. I'm saying you want to take it slow and smooth it out, and you want to choose how you sound. If I want to pick through that slide, I can do that. If I want to emphasize the slide and back off of my right hand to produce a more legato sound, like a smoother sound, you know? You know, that's possible as well. So backing up and saying, okay, like we just kind of broke this thing down. I call this fragmenting, and you can do it with any scale. Let's take a look at more notes inside of the common Jimmy Page box. I like this right here. I like that. Okay, so let's take that. We got to work backwards because the 4 notes are on the D and the G string, so we got to kind of work backwards here. So we're going to go, here's a shape. Let's take it an octave down. Let's take it an octave down and then up. Okay, so if you think about that, same thing. Add the stage lights, add an audience, add your dog barking at you or whatever, and you're probably going to mess up. So let's connect it, and we're going to be pivoting with a slide with a different finger. So check this one out. Once again, ascending and descending and treating it like a lick, treating it like it's the best thing in the world, you know, giving it some love and internalizing it. A quick side note, people ask me how to sound different and how to sound better and how do you sound good, how do you sound like yourself. You know what? If you practice like a robot, you're going to sound like a robot. If you practice like you're playing in front of 1,000 people or 500,000 people, you're going to play like you're playing in front of 500,000 people. So, you know, shut the door, make sure your neighbors don't see you, stand there and perform. Give it all you got. And if you get a habit of doing that, you can turn it on and turn it off. If you don't and you're worried about this, that, and the other, you're going to sound like one of those guys that's just kind of pedaling through notes that has no personality. And that's not cool. You know, not for me at least. That's not what I'm after. Okay, so with that being said, back to how do we take all the stuff we just talked about, review it, shuffle the deck, make a stew out of it, be able to turn it on and off, be able to play it backwards, forwards, all in the above, you know, all of the above, sorry. So let's do that. Let's take the last example we just did, this one. We're going to ascend that, and then we're going to descend the first example. Nope, that's the second example, the other horizontal example. So look at where we're at down here. Now I can pretty much go. Granted, I'm playing a little, you know, I'm playing fast. I naturally play fast, but that is, you can see kind of how effortless, I mean, check out how effortless that is. No, you can see that I'm not really sweating it, and that's where you want to get. It's not the easiest, it's not the hardest, but when you learn something, take it back into what you already do and let it exist, you know, introduce it into your bag of tricks. You know, that's what I do. So I can take and just go, how do I make this go like this? That'll be our next example. Let's do a vertical Jimmy Page box. We gotta adjust. We gotta add one note in there. We'll talk about this later because it's gonna make it even, so you won't be out of time. And here we go. So do you guys see what I'm saying here? It's all about building your empire, I guess you could say. It's all about, okay, you know, I've practiced this, I've learned it. Okay, now what do I do? Well, you want to take it and you want to pull it into all the other stuff you know and find a way to shuffle the deck. You want to, if you know how to play the harmonic minor scale, hey, switch between harmonic minor and pentatonic. You know, if you want to play, want to play in a different key, switch between A minor pentatonic and something else like C minor pentatonic and see how that works out. The idea, once again, is you want to build yourself. And over time, when you practice, you're going to wake up within a few years and you're going to go, wow, like I can effortlessly coast in and out of idea A, B, C, D in any order. And that should be your goal so you could be free. Okay, we got some more questions going on here.
Okay. Jacob asked, very interested in hearing about notes to resolve to.
Well, we want to talk about resolving to certain notes here. And we're going to get into that in this chat. So I'm going to give you like a diet version, right? The diet version goes like this. Let's say that I'm playing A minor and I'm going to D minor. Okay, so real quick, if I play an A minor pentatonic scale, you can see the A minor chord inside that pentatonic scale. There's not a single note in that minor chord that is not inside the pentatonic scale. However, when I go to D minor, can somebody out there tell me which note is not inside the A minor pentatonic scale? You can just call it by finger, you can call it by note, you can call it by fret number. Oh, somebody got it. Look at that. You got the 6th fret on the B string. So what we're going to do is, that's our target. We want to resolve right there. So I'm playing through A minor. That shows the listener that you're playing bang on the one you're playing D minor. That's called playing the changes. So the chord tones are 1, 3, 5, 7, and they bear the strongest resolution. So no matter what you're doing, you can play gibberish, and as long as you resolve to 1, 3, 5, or 7, the listeners are going to know that you know what you're playing over, and that's a sign of maturity, no matter how fast or slow or efficiently you play. So I hope that helped. We're going to get into that later, so stay tuned for sure.
Okay, we have a practice question from Josh. I have a young son and really only get to practice guitar in 10-minute chunks. I typically fall into playing the same thing. How can I make this time effective?
This is a really good question, and you know, I always tell people, if you have 10 minutes for Facebook, if you have 10 minutes for Instagram, you got 10 minutes to play something, and that 10 minutes will add up. As a matter of fact, it's like working out. So check this out. You need to turn yourself into an aerobics instructor. Think about this. When you go to the gym, do you go to the gym and you just start pumping iron like a maniac for like 8 hours and expect results? You're actually going to just be in a lot of pain and probably wreck yourself and then not want to go to the gym because you're hurting so bad. Or do you go and you go for little increments? You go for half an hour here, you go to a cycling class here, you go a little weight training here. You know, you have a routine, and over time, it becomes a part of your day-to-day regimen, and you're going to be achieving your goals. You're going to be more in shape than if you just are like pumping crazy amounts of iron, you know. So guitar playing is the exact same way. 10 minutes is enough. I don't care what anybody says. I haven't had a structured practice regimen my whole life. Okay, I am a squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of guy. My advice to you is find your squeaky wheel, get ready to grease it, and be honest with yourself. So if you have 10 minutes, and this is a great question, because all of us only have 10 minutes. Believe it or not, I'm practicing right now because I'm getting to teach, you know, and that's why I teach, because I find a way to lock myself into having to play. That way there's no choice for me. I don't just, I don't feel like it. No, I have to do this. So it gets you used to playing. To maximize that 10 minutes, you need to look inside yourself and say, yo, I suck at this. And then that's your squeaky wheel. So what you want to do is, for that 10 minutes, for the entire week or month, if you want to work on the diminished arpeggio, then it's diminished arpeggio week. To this day, I see a video of myself. As a matter of fact, I'm sure I'll see this performance I did today, and I'll go, oof, ugh. And I'll go, I need to work that out. And then that whole week is, let's say I'm upset about my dominant playing, my dominant chords. That week is dominant week. Everything I can do to do dominant, dominant, dominant all day long, and then pull it in, right? So I'd recommend starting small. And let's say that you want to learn the pentatonic scale and you got 10 minutes. Don't learn all of them. Learn one. Be stubborn. Don't go shooting. Don't aim high for this. Aim low. Don't trust yourself. Become a creature of habit and pick one thing and destroy it. And then when you think you got it, you don't have it. You don't have it until you're sick of it. When you're sick of it, then you got it. You know what I'm saying? So I'd say treat yourself like you're, think about it like you're an athlete or going to the gym. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. You're not going to go to the gym for 8 hours and feel in shape. If you go for like an hour a day, even if you just do your crunches and your push-ups on the floor right there in your kitchen, every 10 minutes you got, you're going to feel a lot better, right? Same thing with guitar. So pick that one thing, let it rip, don't let it go, do it all week, and I guarantee you will see results. And if you don't, take a look at your technique and start changing things.
Okay, Katerina asked, are there notes in the pentatonic scales that are better for bending than others? I find bending the root sounds strange most of the time.
Bending notes on the pentatonic scale, there's two things that come to mind for me. First is learn other solos, learn licks. That's where you're going to learn how to bend. For example, I like this one. this note right here in the A minor pentatonic scale, the C right here on the G string, it sounds compositionally great because it is easy to bend. Hendrix did that. Keith Richards or whoever, Keith Richards did that. Even the not so great players and the songwriter types, they do that. That's a very common. And it's actually compositionally, it's actually better to bend that note, and it was discovered because it's easy to bend that note. You understand what I'm saying? And so it became a common trend. The guitar creates trends because of its design. You're not going to see somebody bend a note that's almost impossible to bend. So what I suggest is learning other solos and licks. If you have a friend that's playing a cool lick, cool, learn that. And just start listening to more bendy players. And so, for example, I could say this is, and I'm bending away from my face. This is a good one. Okay, this, I'm anchoring, right? This is another important thing. When you bend a whole step, you want to anchor. You want to put every finger down to reinforce this one finger. Same here. I'm into more exotic things too, like the half step. The idea is just to target your notes. There's actually, I have a lesson or two in my series on JamPlay, and I take the major scale and I actually kind of. You want to know where you're bending to, if it's a whole step bend, if it's a half step bend, So, okay, real quick, reinforce the fingers that you're bending on, learn licks, learn some Jimi Hendrix. That guy was great at it. Stevie Ray Vaughan too. And then most importantly, just stay on it. And if it doesn't work, adjust it until it works, right? And if it doesn't work at all, hey, there's other ways to do it. You can slide. Okay? Good question.
Okay. Troy asks, any good 3 notes per string pentatonic ideas?
Yeah, pentatonic ideas. 3 notes per string. There's a few ways to do this. This is going to be a little more technical. This is for Troy. There's also a lesson called wide form pentatonic on JamPlay. That's a fantastic lesson. There's so many lessons on JamPlay that are really cool with this. So dig around for that afterwards, and you'll find that. If you do play 3 notes per string, it's going to sound like this. Sounds like an exercise. It sounds like you're doubling stuff. So that's an issue for me because I don't like the way that sounds. There's too many double notes there. So what I'd recommend is learn the wide form pentatonic like this first. And if you know what a sequence is, which we'll get into, that's a sequence in 4. But you could actually do this. I'm strategically kind of going through and utilizing that upper register to avoid the double stops, which are where you do this. Kind of hard to control. Right, so the other way to play 3 notes per string, oh man, I think it's hard because the notes double. So when I do use 3 note per string pentatonic ideas, it's usually to avoid some imperfection in just a regular vertical pentatonic scale, like 2 note per string. So for example, I'll dip in and out of it. You'll rarely find me just staying 3 notes per string. You can go 3 notes per string, 1 note per string, 3 notes per string. So 3, 1, 3, 3, 1, 3. Watch this. 3, 1, 3, 3, 1, 3. Nice and slow. And then we'll move on here. It does have a kind of a different sound to it, a rolling sound, but that's a really cool thing to explore right there as well. So good luck with that. You can do 3 notes per string pentatonic, but it's going to take a lot of arranging. And so once again, I just kind of dip in and out of it. I hope that kind of helped out a little bit. Try just utilizing it if you have to get away from something cumbersome inside of something you're already playing.
Cool. We have one more question, but first, I want to announce that Andre Olivia, you've won a PRS t-shirt. We have large or extra large, so send your name, size, and address to support@jamplay.com. That's support@jamplay.com.
Sweet shirt.
Andre Olivia.
All right.
Our next question is from Greg. How do the pentatonic scales intertwine with the 7 modes?
Well, considering that the pentatonic scale is a major scale with the 4th and 7 removed, it just corresponds with every mode. So basically, without getting too far into the theory weeds, I suggest looking this up. You could just go to Teaching Tools on JamPlay. First, learn all the pentatonic scales and the caged system. If you learn the caged system, that's going to show you how everything kind of corresponds. So understanding that everything corresponds with chords, arpeggios, all this stuff, that's a very valuable thing. Let's see. So basically, I can tell you right now, this is a C major scale. That's Ionian. Here's the Ionian pentatonic. Okay, so this one, that could be looked at as, what is that? Dorian. That could be looked at as like a Dorian pentatonic. So you don't really refer to it like that because there's certain intervals and formulas that make things Dorian, make things Phrygian. But find out how the pentatonic scale corresponds with the modes. Look it up, and you're gonna. I mean, because right now there's so much going on. I don't really have a chance to break it all down for you. It would take about half an hour to an hour. So to direct you and instruct you as to what to do, get on the internet and look that up. Go to Google image search and just type it in and look at it. You'll see charts all over the place. Go look at it. And what you'll see is that for every chord, there's a corresponding arpeggio. For every chord, there's a corresponding scale. For every scale, there's a corresponding pentatonic scale because the pentatonic scale is a major scale with the 4th and the 7th removed. If you look at a pentatonic scale from a minor perspective, the 2nd and the 6th interval are removed. Okay? So I'm going to kind of pull up my little bag of tricks here, if you want to call it that. I'm going to pull up a little Walmart blues here. And we're going to kind of, I'm going to just keep playing it over and over again. And we're going to kind of apply the pentatonic scale to the blues. And this is something I want to kind of handle with kid gloves because I think this is like a really fun thing to do. And it's a very street smart way to address chord changes. So the first thing I'm going to do is play it. There you go. How's that click? Hear that? So what I'm doing here, that's the 3rd of D7. That's the 3rd of A7. There's a 3rd of E7. There's a 3rd of D7. And there's a 3rd of A7. Okay, so I want to stop and we're going to build this real quick. So the A minor pentatonic scale, as we all know, totally works. Totally works with everything. We can play it over that. Here's what it sounds like just with the pentatonic scale. It works, but it's kind of boring. Think about that. That's 5 notes. That's 5 notes over and over again. It does work, but it's kind of boring. So how do we spice it up? How do we let the audience know that we are listening to the chord changes and we are addressing them as they float by? Now, check this out. If I play A7, what note inside of that A7 does not belong inside of the A minor pentatonic scale? It happens to be this note. As you can see, plain as day. It's that note. Okay? That happens to be the major third of the A7. So what you want to do is you want to put that into your pentatonic scale, and you have like a mashup of A minor pentatonic with the major third of A7, and it sounds like this. Notice how it all of a sudden sounds like this? So now check this out. If I play D7, what note inside of that D7 does not belong, is not indigenous to the pentatonic scale in A minor? It's actually this note, which is that note, which is the major third of D7. So when the D7 happens, I'm going to emphasize inside the pentatonic scale, I'm going to add that note for a Dorian sound, which is F sharp. So here's what it sounds like. Ignore that. That note, it's just a habit of adding the 9. Don't add the 9 yet. And then here's the E7. And to give you the answer there, it's the major third of E7. That's exactly what does not belong inside the A minor pentatonic scale. So we want to bring it in because it's showing the listener that, hey, he's playing off of the E7. He's playing the chord changes, which is a huge sign of maturity musically. So here they are. Try to listen to the chord changes without the accompaniment, and then I'll play it and I'll walk through with the backing tracks. So. Right? So that's kind of a street smart way to sort of address the changes. You're just using your vision. You're going, okay, this. That's the way you want to look at it. You could look at it in all sorts of other progressions, minor blues. And referring back to earlier, that's why progressions are important. It's giving you a roadmap. It's just like a roller coaster. It's the roller coaster tracks, and you're in the cart, and you follow where the tracks go, right? So it's the same exact thing. So here's a 12-bar blues. I'm going to kind of like talk and play through it. And it's my favorite part about this is the metronome. It rules. Got to have it loud so you stay on track. All right, here's the 4. There's the 1. Back to the 4. Whoops. Okay. All right. Okay, so that is a great way to use the pentatonic scale over a dominant progression and emphasize the chord changes. They call it playing the changes. Once again, I know I'm obsessively talking about this, but this is how people sound good. Whether you are technically gifted, whether you sound good or bad, if you play this stuff and you address these chord changes, the best player in the world will be like, whoa, that guy knows what he's doing. No matter how bad you play, like, that guy's making music. Because you're not just aimlessly shooting in the dark, you're aiming towards something. So once again, we're extracting the major third out of the 1, then the 4, then the 5. That's A7, D7, E7. And we're putting it right back into the A minor pentatonic scale, which is what we normally use when we're playing over that kind of stuff. And then at that point, it's start making licks, start making up licks, and start having fun. And you want to play the changes. That's the idea. You want to be able to play the changes without any chord accompaniment. Like, watch this. I'm going to play a little fast, so just pardon me. Right? That's what I'm doing when I play, is I'm just kind of thinking. So I'm basically thinking pentatonic scale, but I'm adding in, I'm like, pentatonic scale, I'm playing over A7, so I'm going to add the third of A7. So I do know what notes I'm playing, but I'm feeling most of the notes, but I'm emphasizing one particular note. And that's kind of, that's sort of how I play, and I come from a bit of a jazz background as well as rock, so try that out. I think you may find some value there, right? Okay. So one more time on that. How about that, see? You can totally hear it. All right, so here we are. Now, what do we do with this? How do we practice? How do we practice? That's the whole reoccurring theme here. You know, when it comes to practicing, I would say it's best to, work with a metronome. It depends on what you're after, really. As long as you're goal-oriented, that's when practice really counts. So a person that has no goal, back to the driving in the car thing, a person that has no destination, no goal, they're not going to profit from practicing. They're not going to get paid to practice. A person's not going to benefit from practicing unless they have a goal. They will benefit, but it's going to be in more of a mechanical way. The people that are really going to benefit from practicing have an end goal. They have an ultimate goal. It's a long-term goal. So what I'd suggest is start out playing it lifelessly. Start out learning the notes and start out paying close attention. And make your decisions and make them wisely and stick with them. And don't alter them unless you have a problem, a reoccurring problem. So when I learn that, I'm then going to go, okay, let's make a couple of licks out of that. And here's a cool lick. You'll hear me do this a million times. Okay, so this is a bit moving forward while looking at this and building the licks, assuming that we already just kind of learned all this information. I could take something like this. I could do it in different octaves. Once you focus in, once you zero in on something that you're doing that you dig, and you're saying, I'm going to write a lick, and you need to make sure you could do it everywhere. Don't stop. That's 3 different places, same lick. The cool thing is when I get to the 4 chord, I can totally take that same lick as it is and play it right here in D in octaves. You guys kind of follow what I'm doing here? You could play like a really awesome Van Halen lick, or a really great just guitar shop lick. Not even like a really like a Blazing Eddie lick, more like a cool like maybe a Stevie Ray Vaughan lick or something like that. It's a very rock and roll mentality to go, okay, I got that lick down. That lick is that lick. I can only play it there. That's not the way jazz guys do it, for better or for worse. There's not one that's better than the other, but the one thing that a jazz sensibility will teach you is that you can take a lick like that, and you look at it and go, hey, that's over A minor. So I can use that over any minor chord. If I go to D, I can be like, and it works on D, and it also plays through the changes. So it's almost like, it's not about just scavenging for all this crazy amount of information. It's more about, you know, and it's not about learning something totally new. You don't have to go learn like an entire Steve Vai song, you know. Go find a lick that he plays that you dig and then learn how to do it everywhere, you know. Start small and build a bigger picture. Don't start with the bigger picture and go, how do I fit this gigantic square peg into this tiny little round hole? Like, that's kind of, you want to have that mentality, because the guitar, it's really easy for us to kind of confuse things. It's easy for us to confuse things because everything is relative to everything else.
Hey, Emil, we've got another question here from Tim. Is there a fallback tempo you use on your practice?
Good question. There is not. But do I emphasize finding a comfortable tempo when I'm writing a song, or built, like, for instance, that jam track that you heard earlier that I was playing when we kind of opened the show today? When I was in the studio, I had my engineer, I played the riff comfortably, and I sat there and I go, nah, oh, there it is. And I'm thinking in my head, how's that feel? You know, you're picking your feel. He tapped tempoed the BPM, and it wound up being like 140. So it turns out that I'm comfortable at 140 for that particular riff. When I do write music, I will make sure that I find the comfortable tempo, because it is going to affect your sound. There's some licks I just don't play unless it's fast. There's some licks I just don't play unless it's slow. So there is not exactly a fallback tempo, but there is a good mid-range tempo that's real comfortable for no-to-ear players. There's a tempo that's real comfortable for faster players. It's usually around the 160 to 180 BPM. What I will do is when I do find that tempo that's comfortable, it's usually because I can subdivide all my notes. I can play in quarters, eighths, and sixteenths comfortably. And that's the goal, is to be able to go and play between any sort of subdivision. Great question. Okay, so check this out, for example. See, I can play both. I can even play triplets. You guys can hear the click, right? That's definitely sixteenths. There's eighths right there too. So to kind of start over real quick. As you can see, I can kind of go in between, right? I'm subdividing. About to go there. There's your triplets. So that's going to kind of open me up into explaining one of these exercises that I've been doing for years, is where you take at a comfortable BPM, you can play it over a track, you know, then you stop it and you kind of work it out on the side. And what I would do is something like this. You want to subdivide. You want to go. Notice how I'm going from one tempo to another. I'm switching up a swing because you're changing gears. It's not the easiest thing to do, so we should always practice that. So at a comfortable tempo, you can subdivide. I'm going to just kind of improvise over this real quick. There's the click. That right there. That's what I'm doing. I'm playing 16th notes. So there is a BPM that's comfortable, and there's a BPM that's kind of uncomfortable. And right here, I can access eighth notes 16th notes, of course, half notes, whole notes, and quarter notes, and then a 16th note triplet, you know. And that's really important that's really important to understand, really. So let's see what we have. Here's one more time here. Okay, so you notice that I'm playing to the backing tracks. We're talking a lot about practicing here, right? And you know, what exactly is practice? I think practice means different things to different people, but there is a standard, you know. But that all depends on your goals. If you're trying to be a country player doing the chicken picking thing, there's a certain kind of practice that you need. You know, there's a certain kind of practice that you need to have, practice that you need to conduct, and most importantly, though, if you understand your end goal, you want to be able to apply it. This is all about application. You know, there's theory, and you don't really cross the line and get to the point of application until you are making music, in my opinion, for better or for worse. So, and this is just my opinion, you know, I'm not saying that I'm really correct here. It's just an opinion, so there's no telling if it's right or wrong. But I strongly believe that the people that are going to have a better time playing, they at least know kind of where they stand and where they're going. And when it gets to the point where you can play something, you're not done yet. Even though you can play something perfectly, standing on one foot with your hands tied behind your back and you're playing it with your nose or something, you know, that you still have to apply it. You still have to find an arena to utilize it in. And that's the difference between a lot of players. There's a lot of cats that could sit down at a music store and blazing saddles, man. They could tear up a guitar. But as soon as you're like, hey, let's play over a blues, like, no, I don't really play the blues. It's like, come on, man, it's fun. You know, that's why, is because they can't really apply what they're working on. So I'd like for everybody that's watching this chat that plays the guitar, that really loves playing the guitar, I'd like for you all to emphasize application. I teach a lot of people around the world. I've been doing it since I was 16, so almost half my life now, right? Half my life now. And the difference between the good and the bad is just literally application. So remember that. That's really important to understand. You learn something, you digest it, you understand the concept mentally, then you get your mechanics down, you get your fingers wrapped around it, you learn it all over the neck, you know, you take care of all that, and then it's time to make music with it. And that's the most important part. So let's try to have goals here, long-term goal, and then the short-term goals that will get us to our long-term goal. I should even take my own advice on that. Yeah. All right, so I got this little thing over here that my friends at PRS sent us. I've been working with PRS since 2007 or 8. It's a wonderful company, and you know, honestly, I've been a clinician for them for quite some time, and I'm fortunate enough to where I kind of fit. I fit in within their roster, I guess you could say. I fit the company for a reason, because you know, when you think, you know, of course, we're not ragging on other companies here, but when you think Fender, you think Jimi Hendrix. When you think you know, Gibson, you think Angus Young or Zach Wilde or something. I'm not saying I'm on those guys' level at all or anything like that, but what I am saying is that I'm fortunate enough to where I've been working with them, and they support me because they really do enjoy artists that do something kind of different, that really have their own thing going on. So I've been working with the company for a while, doing clinics and just being an endorsee, and they've helped a lot. And when I told them that we were doing this cool, you know, live broadcast of how to practice, you know, how to play a guitar, they were like, why don't we just send you guys some cool stuff to give away? And this is one of the things that they sent. So we'll be giving this away at the end of the second session, unless I just decide to take it home, but I don't think I can do that. But so this is a rad guitar. Here are the features real quick. I'll play it a little bit. And it's got one of my favorite things. It's got a coil tap. So It's going to split the pickups here. There we go. And this sounds more like a Strat. Right? Pretty cool. Okay, here's a difference. Yeah, that's a rad guitar. So we are giving this away, and I want to actually just kind of play this for the next little segment here. But so the two things that really the two I guess you can call them entities that really have my back that I've been working for almost the same amount of time would be PRS, but as well JamPlay. This is definitely not my first time here at JamPlay. I've got quite a few lessons on the website, and I might as well take a second to sort of talk about JamPlay and how to get the most out of JamPlay, because I actually have chats about that. JamPlay is a really cool company. It's been around for quite some time. It's the biggest online instructional company that there really is. It's one of the biggest ones that pretty much ever existed, as far as my knowledge is concerned. And I think that it's a really important thing. It's a really cutting edge thing because it's a community. It's interesting how when you have more than one person, more than one person involved in communicating, just how safety in numbers. Human beings, they're incredible by themselves, but you put a group of them together, and then we have this whole community, and it gets really incredible. I've met a lot of people through JamPlay that I'm actually close friends with to this day. I used to play, every time I play Europe, somebody comes up and goes, "Hey man, I'm M. Korsmo on JamPlay." Just kidding. But it's a really cool thing, and they really do. Here's the problem with the internet, and here's what JamPlay gets right. When you go look up tabs and you go look up material, even if it's just a major scale, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be wrong. It is. The first thing that I noticed when I came to work with the guys is that they were really super on top of things being correct and quality control, and making sure that there are no typos, there is no misinformation, because I've even seen it in guitar publications where they just print something that is straight up wrong. So if you do go check out the website and you check it out, you'll see a section called Teaching Tools. In the midst of all the ridiculous amount of awesome lessons from a lot of great artists and a lot of great instructors from around the world, you're going to see Teaching Tools, which is basically, if you want the harmonic minor scale and all bagillion positions, there it is. If you want to learn 500,000 chords, they have a chord library that is just insane. So that's my take on JamPlay. I've been working with the guys for quite some time, and I'm fortunate to be in a position to where I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. And so those, PRS and JamPlay have had my back for quite some time now. And I could actually refer to what I was talking about earlier. People ask me how much I practice. And I tell them it's funny. I'm so busy playing guitar, I don't have time to practice. So what I mean by that is I realized real fast that when you become an adult, it's inexcusable to play 20 hours a day, which is what I used to do when I was a kid. So what I try to do is I try to get myself involved with companies, with opportunities, with gigs, things that just make me play. I think if you took away all the theory I had to talk about teaching since I was like a teenager, if you took all that experience away, I wouldn't be able to apply a lot of the things that I talk about. Teaching, and having to teach, I'm on Jam Chat like Mondays, 8 to 10 Eastern Time, Wednesday, 8 to 10 Eastern Time. I've been doing this for, years. And I do it because it keeps my head in the game. It makes me have to back up what I'm doing and what I'm talking about. And most importantly, it keeps the guitar in my hands. And the added bonus is you get to meet a lot of really, really cool people, on the chats and stuff like that. So definitely check out the website, and dig around. It's so big, you have no idea. A lot of times you're like, well, you just go look and you'll see. And anything that you would need to know, I can't say there's anything on there that I can think of. There's nothing that I can think of that's not on the website when it comes to theory, scales, chords, modes, all that stuff. It is all on there. So check that out. Check it out. Okay, so we're going to do this next session. We're kind of coming to a close here for this opening session, which is more of a basic thing, performance, basically how to practice in a very basic way, taking questions, which we're going to do through the rest of the evening here. But the next session is it starts in 2 hours. It's going to be more in-depth. This one, I'm going to always consider the beginners. I'm going to always consider the people that, hey, slow it down, Werstler, you're playing too fast. I'm going to always consider that. But this is going to be a little bit more in-depth. It's going to be more chromaticism on top of the pentatonics. This is taking stuff to the next level. So instead of just talking about the basic arpeggio, we'll talk about the basic arpeggio with the added 9. Instead of talking about basic pentatonic, we'll talk about the pentatonic scale and how to play it 3 notes per string. We'll talk about how to add chromaticism inside of it and how to get the most out of it. So that's going to come up here in a couple of hours, so stay tuned, okay? All right. Whatever that was. Yeah. All right, everybody. How's it going? Emil Werstler here once again at JamPlay.com. This is the second part of our 2-part live stream for today. And I figured I'd go ahead and give this guitar a whirl since we're giving it away basically in about somewhere around an hour, a little hour plus. But yeah, great guitar. Thanks to PRS and thanks to JamPlay. And we're going to basically get started kind of pushing the envelope. And based on what we did the last session, we're going to actually kind of build on top of that. So, and as usual, keep the questions coming. Believe it or not, I can hear and I can see everything you're doing. I can hear you. Just let me know if you have any questions, and let's get started. Okay. So, first thing I want to do is I'd like to talk about how to build speed and fluidity. Not how to build speed, but not for the wrong reasons. There's a wrong kind of speed. The definition of the wrong kind of speed is bad sounding. That's my definition of the wrong kind of speed. And with that being said, I've got my trusty metronome here. And since I basically am one of those guys that has an iPhone with no apps on it because I'm lazy, I use metronome.com. It's a free metronome. And it's right there. Just bring it up in your browser, and here's what it sounds like. Right? So I'm going to talk in rhythm for the rest of the stream. Is that cool? Kidding. But we are going to get used to living with the metronome. And I want to talk about a few advantages of the metronome. But the first thing I want to do is with the metronome. Let's slow it down a little bit. Let's see. We're at that's 132. Let's go down to about, that sounds about right. A little lower. All right. So the idea is we're going to play a pentatonic scale for starters to kind of ease into this, because we're going to do some chromaticism on top of the pentatonics. We're going to talk about sequencing. We are going to talk about just picking in general and building fluidity, that's the right kind of speed, right? So starting back with our Jimmy Page box that's comfortable, and comfortable is good. So we're going to take, and first I would like to play just with the metronome to get a feel. I am tapping my foot. Okay, so I'm going to work on that. Notice when I broke my concentration and I was about to start talking, I came off the metronome a little bit. You have to really, really concentrate. This is the first step, is that you're playing to the metronome. You are basically being very ambidextrous-minded, and you're playing to something, which is why when you work with the metronome, you're basically naked. You're totally exposed. And when you play with a drummer, it's a lot easier because you've worked with the worst-case scenario besides nothing, which is basically the metronome. So 4 notes. We're going to get comfortable here and embrace the metronome, and we're going to play the 4 notes with a little bit of space in between, like this. Let's accent that 4th note. That's the upstroke. Here we go. All right. Okay, so let's talk about that. Why did I do that? It's very easy. Anybody could do it, but does it sound great when anybody does it? When that certain somebody does it, just anybody could do it, right? I could do that, but can you make it sound good? Can you control your dynamic range? So what I wanted to do was put a space in between those 4 notes to break it up and make kind of more of a rhythmic motif for a few reasons. One reason being meaningful practice. Meaningful practice is when you practice stuff that you're going to actually use in a musical context. Not like... Excuse me. If you're playing that kind of stuff and it's working out for you, that's fine. But if you play that over a song, not many people are going to be very impressed, let's face it. So what I like to try to do is I try to always refer back to practice the way you're going to perform. Practice music. And don't practice some exercise. Why? It's because when you practice an exercise, you wind up getting good at that exercise, even great at that exercise. So then you've made the investment. You've made like just an investment where you have one advantage. You can wiggle your fingers around and get your blood flowing. Great. What if I was to tell you, what if I was to tell you that you can hit 2 or 3 birds with 1 stone by creating something musical? So back to the metronome. Let's kind of create a... Let's go through the scale just like that. Now we're kind of going to continue on to build on one original idea. Okay, now let's skip strings. Let's go. Right? Let's go all the way up. Okay. So you want to relax and make sure your feel is there. I'm kind of making this part up, and that's what I do every day. Okay, there's a lot of stuff planned out for today, but I like to try to sit down and pick anything I'm working on and break it down into a digestible fragment of rhythm. And that way, here's the thing. you want to do this so you could actually hear and feel the metronome, because when you're spot on the metronome, they call it burying the metronome, you can't even really hear it. When you're so on the metronome, you can't even really hear it. You're not supposed to really hear it. It's just supposed to keep you in check. So if you're using all your motor skills to worry about playing fast and playing a lot of notes, your hearing is the first thing that goes. So we're trying to leave space to allow for ourselves to hear. Okay, now that we've talked about leaving space for rhythmic purposes and also to let things breathe, leaving space allows for you to hear everything around you. Let's talk about a sequence now. And let's talk about what can we do with a basic idea like the A minor pentatonic scale and get more out of it. So for those of you that don't know what a pentatonic sequence is, we're going to go for a sequence in 4. And we're going to start there and we're going to get more complex and do more complex sequences. So here's a basic sequence in 4. It's when you go starting on the root note, which is the 5th fret, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to start on the 2nd note and go up 4. Starting on the 3rd note, going up 4. 4th note, up 4. So on, so forth. All together. With the metronome. All right, now let's stop for a second before we get carried away and get even more technical with stuff. That was me playing a sequence of 4 in the key of A minor with the pentatonic scale. Now, one thing that I'm doing is I'm accenting. Accenting is the key to being, to just sounding good. It not only do you sound good, it keeps you on track rhythmically. Sometimes when you're playing 8th notes straight through with no resting, the only thing you can really rely on is accenting. Okay? Now, with that being said, I'd like to talk about pick stroke and tone. We're going to take the same thing, and without the metronome, I'd like for us all to try to heavily accent our upstroke, and we'll talk about why you want to do this afterwards. So here's what it's going to sound like. Even harder. Let's accent even harder. Okay, now, why would we do that? Well, if you notice, when I go like this, believe it or not, up and down has a very different tone. One, actually, when you kind of get started playing guitar, the first few years, one is going to be a lot weaker than the other. So the upstroke is a weaker tone because just think about gravity. Is it easier to fall or is it easier to jump up in the air 10 feet? I think it's easier to fall 10 feet than it is, that's the idea. So you want to accent your upstroke because it's going to even the playing field for both pick strokes. It'll never sound exactly the same, but it's most definitely going to straighten you out and make you sound more fluid. You notice I say the word fluid a lot. Fluidity is the key. Speed, there's bad speed and there's good speed. Good speed is fluidity and control. Bad speed is let's just cram a bunch of notes that don't matter and play as much as possible and look silly doing it, right? We don't want to do that. There's enough people doing that. So anyways, a little tune up here. Now, on the subject of the upstroke, we want to use this with the idea that we can make both strokes sound not exactly the same because that's going to sound like a computer. We don't want to do that. Enough people are doing that by fixing things when they record it, which is fine if you can't really play them. Okay, so check this out. Another little idea here. Now, Let's talk about another sequence, and it's going to be a sequence of 6. But we're going to talk about there's a musical sequence and there's a guitar sequence. A musical sequence is where theoretically it's very thorough, so you don't skip a single beat. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, go to the second interval, 1, 2, 3, 4, third interval. But there's this thing that like guys like Zach Wilde do that are really cool. That is really cool, which is where he'll do a sequence in the form of sixths. Sixths? Say that 10 times fast. Where it's about like this. Notice that's 6. But now here's the thing. If you were to really play that correctly, theoretically like a sequence, it would be like this. All of a sudden you have 1 note here, 2 notes there, 1 note. Our right hand is basically going to be really messed up. So what he did is he actually took it and he goes down 6. But instead of going to the second note, he goes to the B string where every time you play 6, a grouping of 6, it's going to be down, up, down, up. It's going to be 2 notes per string. Everything stays the same, so you could basically pick to your heart's content. Something like that. Okay, now let's talk about how to get up to that speed without the metronome before we dive back into the metronome. What I've always told people when they ask me how do I play faster, I'm naturally kind of a faster player. I'm always in a hurry, so it kind of comes out in my playing. But you know what? I never really worked with the metronome until recently, until probably, until I kind of got real serious and wanted to be a professional player. Because I understood the discipline, but I think that building speed, people talk about playing it at 120 BPM, bumping it up 1 BPM, that's, who does that? That's not a musical, it's a good idea, but to me, I'm too impatient for that. Okay, so what I did was I would take something and analyze the technique, and I would burst. Bursting is where you take like a 4-note chunk of the lick and you burst it out. So if I was to take this idea, I mean, to be able to do this, how about starting off here? Let's try that with a metronome. Okay, not the most musical, but we're not talking about being musical right now. We're talking about technique. So, okay, so now we're at a point where we're doing something about like this. How do we get to the point of where we could just jump in and peel it off? Well, okay, that exercise I created a long time ago. Well, I didn't create it. I mean, I kind of just sort of started doing it a while back because I realized that playing at a faster tempo, you're kind of you're switching gears, You're going from, 8th notes straight to 16th notes. You're kind of going from half speed to full speed. So it's the space in between and kind of going in and out of half speed and full speed. So what I'm doing here is I'm going between like 8ths and triplets. Okay, and what you do is you toggle back and forth and do the 8ths. And then eventually you do 2 at a time. And to the point of where you could basically just do one or the other constantly. So It is important to use a metronome, but as far as building speed, you have to constantly revise your technique. You have to constantly look at what you're doing because this is basic stuff right here, believe it or not. It's going to get a little hairier once we kind of get into this today, but for the most part, bursting is really important. Always referring to your technique and readjusting. If something doesn't work, stop what you're doing, look at it logistically and go, oh, I need to find a way to not play an upstroke right there. Well, that's not possible, so how about I change the note before it? Well, that's not possible. How about I change the first 4 notes and start with an upstroke when I start the whole lick, And enough of that kind of behavior, you're going to constantly be moving forward and making adjustments, and that's really, really important. Okay. So what I want to talk about right now to kind of get into connecting the dots being idea A, idea B. A lot of times as players, it's the space in between that we have the problems with. We can play idea A just fine, we can play idea B just fine, and then connect them together, we just fail at it miserably. So I want to talk about a really cool technique that I've sort of developed and talked about on JamPlay, Jam Chat. There's Premier Guitar articles I've written about this, and it's going to be basically adjusting what you already know, which is the pentatonic scale, to make it an even playing field. So how about this? When I ascend the pentatonic scale, and then I come back down, that's not an even amount of notes. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So if you ever wonder why you kind of end a lick on the wrong beat, and you just can't really, it just kind of is what it is, take a look at your notes and count them, and you may find that you're playing an odd amount of notes. In this case, going up from E to E and then back down from E to E, the pentatonic scale, you've got 23 notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that note back in, and it's going to be the 9. I'm going to add it 1 time, so check this out. There it was right there. Okay. The advantage to that is that my picking hand doesn't turn around. The lick turns around, but my picking hand doesn't. Watch my picking hand. Okay, and then one last thing before we get to some questions. I'm going to do one more half step to turn it back around like this. And then it becomes a complete flowing lick. Not lick, but scale. Okay, and we're going to get into that shortly, but first we're going to go for some questions here. So here we go.
Okay, we have a question here from Steven. Do you suggest alternate picking, or do you think whatever works for the player? I play a mixture of alternate and economy.
At the end of the day, it's all about what works best for you, but you have to be respectful towards all of it. You have to be humble, and you can't force your own agenda, because you know what? Depending on the scenario, there may be a more applicable picking, okay? Picking technique. I used to be an economy guy through and through before I went to school. And you want to talk about a kid that only cared about being perfect and fast. My harmony was not anywhere near it is now, but my speed back then and my accuracy, I wasn't playing anything musically technical. I was just playing stuff a bazillion miles an hour. And I found that that kind of playing, was heavily reliant on economy picking, sweeping, and tapping. Now, when I started meeting real deal cats that played gigs, that really had gigs, real guys that could improvise better solos than I could ever write, and I first came onto that and met a few guys that were my age that were already there, and I was like really intimidated and like, wow, this sounds really awesome. I want to join in on this. I feel left out, right? I have to say that this guy named Carter Arrington, who's a really great player, taught me a lot about improvisation and timing. He's a kind of a funk player. One of the many things he does is funk, but he's an alternate picker. He would play things that I play, but he would strictly alternate, no matter how much effort it took. So I didn't really understand. I'm like, dude, why don't you just sweep that, or why don't you just economy pick that, or use a rest stroke? And he'd go, no, man. He's like, He's like, it's not the most efficient picking, but the advantage of it is you don't have to think as much. He's like, whatever you hear, it comes out. Now, you can't play at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but whatever you hear comes out. And not only that, it increases your meter. So once again, the advantage of alternate picking is it increases your meter. No matter who you are or who says what, there is not, even Alan Holdsworth, there are moments where his legato will roll. It's in time and it's awesome. Van Halen's awesome, but there's a lot of rolling. Sometimes he's forcing, listen to Hot for Teacher, he's cramming a lot of notes into one measure, which is why I love it, but it's not divided. Now, granted, not everybody wants that sound, but what alternate picking does is, let's say you have an arpeggio. If I sweep that, listen to what I could do if I slow it down and pick it. Hear those accents? If I alternate pick it, I can control, right? So you're going to hit a ceiling. You can't really go as fast when you're picking across strings, but you can control the way every single note sounds. So alternate picking increases your meter. Economy picking is more fluid and rolling. And legato, it's kind of, that's a different kind of thing altogether. But so there is no right or wrong way. Just like you, I do both. I see advantages. The biggest advantages is the biggest advantage would be knowing when to use both and knowing how to use both in one total package. And then you sound fluid and you sound accurate and your feel is great. So I hope that helps out. Let's see. Yeah. Economy versus alternate. Okay. So I could sweep that. I can sweep that, but can you do this with sweeping? And that's all you really need to know right there. I can go. I mean that right there is you just can't do that with economy. I'm sure somebody can, but they're going to probably have to do chicken picking as well to get that. You can't really, you're locked down to going up or down for the most part with economy picking in the rest stroke. Mixing it up and playing things like, picking all of it now. There's always an exception. I'm not saying that I'm 100% right. There's always an exception. I could even show you right now how to economy through it, but that's not the point. That's a major scale. Now, if I had economy pick back up that, even if I could do it, it would sound kind of like that. You can hear the notes moving around, but if I go, that's a good testament to just how valuable alternate picking is. So I hope that really kind of breaks things down for you. Do both for sure. Always be humble and respect what everybody else is doing and ask yourself, am I being a jerk forcing my own agenda, like saying, no, this is a superior technique, or am I just scared because I can't do it, right? And you may find that if you're open to anything that's an advantage that works for somebody else, you're going to be a more well-rounded player, straight up.
Okay, this one's from John. Is there an exercise I can do to develop strength in my right pinky?
Yeah, there is an exercise. Pinky finger is interesting. I could use my pinky, but I'm a big Django fan, so a lot of times past the 12th fret, you rarely see me do it unless I'm doing kind of wide form. Stuff like that. The answer to your question, there's a short form answer, which is you need to be playing stuff with your pinky. So work on your major modes, up and down, play arpeggios, up and play proper fingering. No matter how bad it feels to your pinky, you got to do it. You're working out a muscle. Your pinky is not developed because the muscles are not developed as much as the other ones are because it's a smaller, weaker finger. Now, with that being said, there are exercises you can do to target the pinky. I would recommend permutations. I know I said you want to practice with musicality, but this is something where if you're trying to develop muscle, you need to be a grunt worker. You don't want to think, how do I take a shortcut? You want to put yourself through misery, basically. So permutations are real simple. Index finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky finger. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, first I'm going to do this. One, two, three, four, 1, 2, 3, 4. Real simple. Now, I'm going to go 1, 3, 2, 4. Okay. How about 1, 4, 2, 3? I remember when I was working on arpeggios slowly, like picking them like this. That's going to kill your pinky. If you play like a major or a minor arpeggio, you know, you just got to use it. You got to use it or you got to lose it. That's just how it is, right? But, you know, there's this, I remember back in the day when I was a kid at the guitar shop, everybody used to try to break my balls and be like, oh man, yeah, you're awesome, but could you use your pinky? You don't use your pinky. And I'm like, I don't need to use my pinky. Why? I can, but why? So don't be so stressed out about it. Don't really, not that you're stressed out, but don't be really, do it for the right reasons. Do it because you want to be a more complete player. Don't do it because somebody said, you got to use your pinky, bro. I mean, just go look at Django Reinhardt. In my opinion, that's the best guitar player that ever lived, and he had 2 fingers. So, hey, you know, whatever's best. But anyways, back to it. Permutations are gonna not really increase your musicality, but if you're disciplined enough, it is gonna work your muscle, and that's what I'd recommend. Along with straight up, if you want to be a better guitar player and work any pinky finger or whatever, just play the guitar. Just be serious about playing. And if you play your modes and your scales like this, and you use your pinky, if you really work on that every day, you're going to really see an improvement. So I hope that helps.
Okay, here's a question from Carlos. He's wondering if you would recommend a tone to use when practicing, clean, overdrive, time delay effects, etc.
Okay, Carlos, great question. No effects, no time-based effects, no delay. Do not practice with delay. Do not, I mean, a little nip of reverb, a little tiny little bit of reverb is not going to hurt, but it's still a crutch. It still makes the amp easier to play. What I recommend is playing dry as possible to really feel the note coming out of the guitar when you strike it. You want to be as close to the note as possible. Think about this. When you train to run 1 mile, what do? Do you run half a mile a day? I mean, I don't. If I want to train to run 1 mile like a maniac, I'm going to run 10 miles every day. 10 miles. Train for 10 to run 1. Think about that. So what you want to do is you want to play dry. You want to play clean. And you want to play really with a tone that you can hear every note. You don't want to squish up your notes. When you record, perform, you know, people can say whatever they want to say about my playing, but you know what? When I play live, you can hear every single thing that I do because I play with a little gain, I play with lots of volume, good mids. I don't scoop my mids, and I pick the crap out of the notes. You want to be able to hear yourself, okay? So, with that being said, I do play unplugged a lot, walking around the house. When I'm warming up, I'll play unplugged. When I'm practicing, I play to a clean tone. Actually, I basically just play in a clean tone. With that being said, when I've been going for clean tone too long and I do reintroduce myself to the world of distortion or overdrive, I have to reacclimate myself, and I actually have to rediscover. It only takes a couple of hours of playing, but you got to rediscover how to mute because muting with distortion is important, and you'll forget about that if you're not. So that being said, don't practice with delay. Don't practice with reverb. You can do a little bit of reverb just to get yourself inspired. But play dry. If you could sound good through a piece of crap amp that has no saturation, think about how great you're going to sound through your Axe effects or whatever these kids are playing these days, right? Like, you're going to sound great, you know? So hopefully that helps. All right. So now, we kind of opened up this can of worms earlier before we took a couple of questions. When you slide, pick, hammer on, or pull off, you're striking the guitar with your left hand. When you strike the guitar with your left hand, you're buying your right hand time to make adjustments. This is what I call This is basically what I call the left hand and right hand relationship. So if you've ever been in a boat before and you're rowing a boat like a canoe, you may notice that the person up front's going to steer and the person in the back propels. Your right hand is just like the propeller and your left hand is the steering mechanism. Now, when you are moving, for a split second, the guy up front can stop altogether and the guy in the back can propel the boat and it still goes. If he goes for too long, though, what happens is the boat starts to kind of spin or go whichever way. So in a sense, it takes both hands to really propel and steer at the same time. Now, with that being said, what I'm doing here is I'm adding this note, and I'm doing a pull-off. Okay, now when I come all the way down, I'm going to overshoot that root note, go a half step below it, and slide. And you'll notice that when I slide, I don't pick the slide. I just let my hand kind of... So if you heard that, you'd probably think I was picking every note. I'm not. When I slide, it's an upstroke, and I accent the upstroke. And then I'm back down to business. So to kind of reiterate what I'm talking about, let's cut all these notes out and let's do a half idea. So here's the half idea. A minor pentatonic, 5/7 on the D string, G string 5/7, and then following through 5/8 5/8. Now we're gonna add the same thing. We're gonna add this note though. That note. Okay, let's take it up a little bit. Let's take it up a lot, actually. Let's take it up some more. Screw it, why not? Maybe a little more. All right. So as you can see, I'm sort of accenting and sliding to buy my picking hand time to do whatever it has to do. You believe it or not, when you slide, hammer on, or pull off, you're buying your right hand time. So you should always think like that. Let's take a real quick look at another shape of the pentatonic scale. This is, we're adding the 9. Actually, that's not the 9, but it is here. On the way up. Okay, we're adding this D right here. And then the 9. So here's the exercise slow. Notice how I'm accenting, it's really important. Okay, so how do we take the first idea and that idea and go between the two? Since we're using a slide, excuse me, we do that same kind of motion, but we just do this. So here's the example. And there's your exercise that loops, okay? So let's do that with the metronome. take it up a little bit. Oops, here we go. Okay, so think about if you could do it with one pentatonic position, you could do it with all of them. If you can do it with all of them, you can do the exact exercise up the neck and down the neck for life, over and over again until the cows come home, basically. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea of how you can sort of pivot to connect the dots. We're sliding and we're connecting bigger ideas, or smaller ideas, chaining them together. A lot of times people can play everything. They can play this, they can play that, but the questions I get on the Jam Chats, the question I get from all my private students is, man, how do I I could do all these sweep arpeggios, but how do I connect the dots? And this is one way. Your left hand can connect the dots for you by striking the guitar, and at the same time, understanding music theory is how to connect the dots in Chromaticism, which is what we're about to talk about next. Okay, so as you can see on our little lesson guide on JamPlay.com, we have this section where we're basically going to crank it now. We're going to crank. Here we go. All right. We're going to crank it up a little bit, and we're going to talk about how to get notier while seeing the pentatonic scale, but playing more than the pentatonic scale. And this is something I get asked about a lot because a lot of folks, they start out with rock and roll, they get good at the pentatonic scales, they get awesome at it, then they want to sound jazzy or bluesy or different, and they go, hey, Emil, how can I sound jazzier? How can I sound more outside the box? Well, this is one way you can do it. There is rhyme or reason, though. You can't just go playing random chromatic notes. It's not going to sound good, but what you can do is something like this. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create something about like this. We're in A minor, and I'm taking out. I could do that, but I like starting on the 9 instead. So we're starting on B, 2 notes per string, 4 notes per string. Now we're going to try to get the most out of that fragment. We're going to take it to the metronome. Excuse me. Okay, now that we're comfortable with that, let's carry on. We're gonna go. You could also finger it like this. But we're gonna go. Now there's the rhyme or reason. Basically what I'm doing here is this is the 4th. If you go all the way down, you're going to hit a major 3rd, which is not cool, but you're blowing right past it, so it doesn't matter. You're actually, I believe you're on the upbeat anyways. Adding 2 more notes, we're coming up here and adding the A, then the G. So we have a 4-string idea that's 2 notes, 4 notes, 4 notes, 2 notes. Why am I counting notes? Well, since it's an even amount of notes, it's going to be really easy to manage this idea. So here it is slow. Okay, let's take that to the metronome now, and let's see what we can do with that. Remember, small fragments equal the big picture. You can't really make a big picture equal small fragments unless you smash it with a hammer, right? And then you rebuild it. That's what we're doing here. Excuse me. How about this? It gets a little off beat because we're dealing with now you're playing around with where the beat actually falls. That was starting on the ands. Let me slow it down a little bit. So it's the same thing. I can start on the downbeat, or I can start on the upbeat. Downbeat, upbeat. There we go. Downbeat, upbeat. Right? So that creates variation. Now, one last thing, speaking of variation in rhythm, we can play this like taka 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 taka, or we can play it in more of a triplet fashion. Like, check this out. Right? You can even go back and forth. Oh, pardon me, it's been a long day. All right, there we go. There we go. Okay, so look at that. All right, now let's take it and multiply it. Let's multiply our productivity. And here's how we do that. This is a fragment. With all the ways that we applied rhythmic variation and all this stuff just a second ago, we'll check it out. We can take it down an octave just like earlier. Okay, not the most musical thing. We don't want to go biddle-diddle, biddle-diddle. We don't really want to do that. I mean, come on. There's better stuff to do than that. But these fragments work their way into your playing, and you can get from point A to point B. For example, so these next three fragments are going to be the part of a larger idea, and they're all interchangeable. Check this out. The same way that we octafied this, let's do this. Here is fragment A. Or you could just make it rhythmic. That's cooler anyways. Okay, now that's A. Here's B. Very John McLaughlin sounding, which is what I dig. This is an A minor, by the way. And finally, here's fragment C. A, B, C. Now's where the fun begins. If I take a look at A, and I take it down an octave, it's right on top of C. How about that? Now, see what I'm doing? Once again, I'm going A. Actually, I'm going C. I can do the lower octave of B. Then I can go back to the lower octave of A. Do you see where I'm going with this? So watch this thing. Okay, so if you saw me play that faster, like way up to speed, and rip that idea all the way from here to here, you go, wow, that's a lot of stuff. That was 3 ideas. What am I thinking in my head? Here's what I'm thinking. Don't mess up. You messed up. Okay, don't mess up this one. You didn't mess that one up. Oh, dude, I'm not really thinking anything. Usually I'm kind of staring off into space. How about that? Or I'm thinking about where I'm going to go next. Where am I going? How am I going to end this? This is really fast. How in the world am I going to end this? Okay. So that's the idea. Now you can simplify that and you can come up with like cool little pentatonic ideas. It doesn't have to be so chromatic. Like here's another pentatonic idea. You know? All those little boxes work. It's really just getting it together and being organized and managing smaller ideas. When you can manage smaller ideas, it builds up to be the bigger picture. And you could do more with that. So, in a sense, you're killing 2 or 3 birds with one stone, right? And that's the whole idea. However, we want to be as musical as possible. So instead of just doing this, I suggest something more rhythmic like this. Put some sass into it. Put some humanity into it, for the love of God. I mean... That was like 2 or 3 ideas, and I wasn't even really thinking very much because I practiced those little tiny fragments, and then I would practice learning them everywhere, and then I would basically craft a run and end it with a lick. You know, you can play a lick, start one of these runs, come up the fretboard, and end it with the lick, and that's the idea. Okay. Okay, here we go. Now, where do we go from here? So we talked about the metronome. We've kind of taken it up a little bit, and we're playing straight up. We're playing more notes, you know. But also, I want you to understand that don't get blindsided by the notes and the metronome stuff. You have to understand that I'm managing ideas. It took me playing guitar for 15, 20 years before I realized just how to finally manage an idea. With that being said, let's take and craft something that is less frantic and covers more ground. Watch this. Descending the A minor scale, overshooting the root note, sliding up, and continuing on down the street up to this area. So you got this. Pardon me, sorry about that. So earlier we did this thing where we did a horizontal idea. I'm connecting those dots. That's how you connect the dots with 1 half step. Here we go. My picking hand never moves. It just goes down, up, down, up, down, never changes. Okay, now let's kind of continue on. Instead of just stopping abruptly, let's end this thing, okay? Let's come back down. Well, first let's work backwards. We have A minor, so let's target this. Just, sorry about that. That's it. Okay, so watch this. I went from here to here without much thought, you know, with just a lot of elbow grease, a lot of practice. And once you get used to it, it totally seeps out into your playing. This guitar sounds great. Okay. Now, let's do the same thing, but we're going to get a little bit crazier with it. It still sounds smooth. This doesn't sound crazy, but how about this? We're going to start here. And we're going to do this move called, I call it cascading. So instead of going and hitting the flat 5 in the pentatonic blues scale here, how about here? Because now it makes it 2 note per strings. As you can see, I'm simplifying and taking out all the question marks. If there's if there's 3 notes here and 2 notes here, I'm probably going to rearrange it to where it's 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes. So when I sequence it, I can economy pick it. I can do just really about anything I want. So here's what we're going to do. This lick is one of the most useful licks I've come across in a long time. Okay, so here's what I'm doing. I'm going. And that's a great way to shift through pentatonic positions and get to the comfort zone, which is where I want to kind of take a second and make a quick note. Everybody, no matter who you are, has gray area on the guitar neck. No matter how logical you are, no matter how experienced you are, there are just some shapes that do not, they're harder to play than the regular Jimmy Page box. They're not comfortable, and we may play for a split second, but we usually move on to a more comfortable group of notes to grab onto. With that being said, what I want to point out is instead of tackling something that's really, really hard to play, you can usually invest more time into what you already know and get past that. So if you can't climb the wall, if you can't run through the wall, well, walk around the wall. What were you waiting for? That's kind of the mentality you want to have. We definitely don't want to leave gray area and be lazy and not practice. That's the worst. I fully believe it. If you enjoy something, do it all the time, or you don't truly enjoy it. I mean, you know? So with that being said, what I do here when I cascade, what I'm doing is I'm starting here in this shape. Excuse me. And I'm actually going to go. And all of a sudden, just by using that one cascading example, I'm away from that. And I'm already in the most comfortable scale of all time, the pentatonic scale. Okay, anyways, one last really quick example here that I think is really fun to play. Oh, this is a good one. This very Django Reinhardt inspired way to inspired way to kind of create a more sequenced sound without actually sequencing something. So watch this. You're going to basically go. Pretty rad, right? Let's get that to the metronome here. So, think about that. When you do play here, there's a major third, so it may not work, but just be careful. The idea is to have a concept that you can grasp, and that's how Django would play with two fingers. Is instead of doing this, he would do this. Right? So you can do it to the pentatonic scale because that's our vehicle today. The pentatonic scale is the most accessible scale. And, you know, I've heard players play the pentatonic scale that I thought it was so outside sounding, but it turned out, or so brilliant. And then I learned what they're doing, and it's the regular same pentatonic box that I'm used to working with. You know, so that's a positive thing to understand. It's a good thing. Once again. All right. Let's do some more metronome work here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of everything. Let's take a little bit of everything, and we're going to shuffle the deck, okay? And we're going to try to make some music here, because this stuff is technical, but come on. It sounds like an exercise. We don't want it to sound like an exercise. I'd rather be slow and terrible than fast and even worse, right? So. Okay, so let's talk about what I just did there. There was a bunch of randomness, that's for sure. Shuffle the deck, we call it. At the end of the day, when you're done learning stuff, and when you're done mastering stuff and practicing stuff, you could A, stop what you're doing and go, hey, I know a lot of stuff, and then you just kind of become a robot, or you could shuffle the deck and see just how much stuff you can pull out of every avenue in your mind, every little tiny closet or dresser drawer in your head. Try to pull a little bit of everything, because variety is the key. When I don't improvise, when I don't exercise that muscle and I lose it, I usually wind up playing the same stuff over and over and over again. People always say, Emil, I'm playing the same stuff over and over again. I'm in a rut. What do I do? And, usually there's the typical run-of-the-mill. I say, well, what are you working on? What are your goals? But then, most importantly, I usually tell them after it's all said and done, let's just be logical. Screw all the details. Let's just be logical. If you sit down in a chair and you concentrate as hard as you can, and you tap your foot, and get your body into it, get your blood flowing, and just improvise to the metronome. Who cares what you play? Just don't stop. Don't stop. Your only goal is to improvise. That right there is making music. You're playing to something, right? There's no melody there, or harmony, but there most definitely is a beat to play to and something to focus on. So let's just do that for a split second. We won't waste too much time doing this. Let's see. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm putting the metronome on the upbeat, so that's a downbeat. So let me slow it down so you can hear me actually put it on the upbeat. This is common practice to swing your notes. So I can go. There's the upbeat. So that right there, there's two things I just did. I improvised over the metronome, for better or for worse. Just goofing off, playing whatever. And I put the metronome on the upbeat. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. This is common practice for jazz players. And if you go to school for music, that's one of the first things. If you have a decent instructor, he's going to do you a favor and tell you about that. Work with the metronome on the upbeat. Work with the metronome on the downbeat, because it's a totally different psychological thing. Here it is in the downbeat. Let's just take the tempo up just for fun. Okay, so what was that? I don't know. I was just playing stuff, you know. Sometimes you got to boil it back down to the basics. After we spend a couple of hours today, we spent a couple of hours talking about all this like numbers and letters and ideas and concepts, you know, simple, complex, all this stuff, fragments, big picture, all these things we're talking about. But then there's a point in the day where you got to just empty out your head, and the only goal is one goal, is to sound cool. How about that for a goal? I'm going to sound cool. Turn on the metronome and let's sound cool, you know? Hopefully sound cool. Anyways. Okay. Sure. Okay, so we are giving away this guitar, by the way. I'm kind of bummed out about that because it sounds really good. So whoever gets it's going to really win. Do you hear how this thing sounds? Granted, I may have like an overdrive pedal down here. So I've been working with PRS for quite some time. I love doing clinics with them. I love going to the factory. Paul's the real deal. He's a mad scientist. You know, he really does get his hands dirty. He really does invent the guitars that they put out, and he's got a great team of people that do the same things. And so they were generous enough to give us this guitar and give us a bunch of swag to just kind of give away and promote this event, and which leads us to JamPlay. So if you ever get a chance and you're curious, I suggest logging into JamPlay and just take a look at what they have to offer. I've been with JamPlay just about as long as PRS, you know. I go for quality, not for quantity when it comes to who I push and who I allow to back me as a musician. And PRS and JamPlay have been there for me for, I mean, it's been years and years. I think I've been doing the Jam Chat for like 6 years now, I think, if it's even been around that long. 2009, I believe, is when I started doing it. So log into JamPlay. Go take a look at, start out with the artists. Go look at all the artist series. You got Dave Wieners on there, Steve Vai's guitar player. Got the Machine Head guys on there. Brett Mason, who's just like the almighty Brett Mason, is on there doing a lot of really cool lessons. Bumblefoot, Ron Thow's on there, another guy that's just incredible. They really do bring a lot of real players out to sit down and just do their thing, which is really respectable, I think, for a company. I don't know how I'd do it if I owned a guitar company like that. So when you're done looking at all the artists, go look at all the lessons. There's like, I think I saw somewhere around 5,000 lessons, I believe. Yeah, that's 5,000, something like that. But yeah, there's a ton of them on there. I think at this point I've got about 50 on there myself. But yeah, check it out. And while we're on the topic, every Monday and Wednesday I'm there from 8 to 10. I'm on from 8 to 10 and on Jam Chat Q&A, which is more of like a support system. Jam Chat Q&A is where I'm on video and I'm playing guitar, and you're in a chat room, and you're just asking me questions. And I do it for 2 hours, and I love doing it. It's what I do at like 8 to 10 Eastern Time. Every week I do it. You know, it's kind of, sometimes I use it to just practice. Sometimes I just sit down and practice a new tune just to surprise people and show them how I actually work through a tune. A lot of times it's just a good group open discussion. So check that out, jamplay.com. And for more info on PRS guitars, check out prsguitars.com. And if you subscribe to their like Instagram and Twitter, may God have mercy on your soul, you're going to see so many guitars that you're just going to want so bad. I almost want to unsubscribe from them just so I don't have to see these beautiful guitars and go, man, I got to have that. I got to have that. Anyways. Okay, so last but not least, I do have a record coming out. There's no official release date yet because I'm trying to do it properly. I don't want to crowdfund it because, you know, business-wise, when you publicly raise money, you don't have a leg to stand on. I've done it before with Chimera. We were blessed enough to have, $60,000 we raised for this record through a lot of the fans. A lot of my students just donated a ton of money, and it's just really amazing, and it really did amazing things. But the problem with that is that when you are negotiating anything and trying to do it legitly, people think they know, they know how much money you've raised, and they really are just like, give me $10,000 and I'll do it. So I'm not really looking to put it out crowdfunding. I will if I have to, but I definitely want to find a home for it because it's very important to me, because for the first time in my career, I've gotten to write a record exactly how I've wanted to write it. No rhyme or reason, no silly rules like you have to have a blast beat, you have to have heavy metal drumming with none of that. I got to play with who I want to play with. There's a different musician on every song, and I'm really excited about it. It's being shopped right now, and I think that, well, actually, it's going to officially be shopped around June. But the songs that I shop, just in case they leak, I may put them out anyways. I'm not sure about that, but June is kind of the go time for this. You're going to start seeing media popping out, video popping out, performances popping out sometime around June. And hopefully the thing will be out by this year. And it's basically almost done. It's self-funded, and I'm excited about it. So keep an eye open for that. Check me out on Twitter and Facebook and all that. You'll see me talking about it, I'm sure. So anyways. Okay, so for guitar playing in general, and for me, if you want to know what color my socks are, favorite pair of jeans, I'm a Levi's guy. Let it rip. Here we go. And then eventually we're going to give away this thing. Questions. You guys can ask questions. Go for it. Let her rip.
Okay, Emil, we have a question. Unfortunately, we didn't catch the name, but we have one of our users today. They asked, do you have a favorite amp?
Oh, man, yeah, I sure do. My favorite amp is going to be, let's see, right now I exclusively use the PRS Archon 100 with the 6L6s. It's, it's a devastator. It's smooth. It's 2 channels. It's simple. It's 2 channels. That's it. 2 channels, 100 watts. It switches from 100 to 50 watts. For more info on that, you can check out prsguitars.com. And there's actually a video with Zach Myers from Shinedown, Dusty Waring from BT Bam, Between the Buried and Me, Mark Tremonti from Alter Bridge, and me. And we launched that amplifier, and I'm playing that exclusively. My grail, the thing that I have that travels with me, believe it or not, I have a 2012 20th anniversary, I think. It's 2012, I think. 20th anniversary Bogner Shiva with KT88s. That amp is the amp that when I die, nobody gets it. It just has to go get buried with me. So those are my, that's my go-to touring amp is the Archon. And every recording you've ever heard of mine, the most important parts of the record are probably going to be that Bogner 20th anniversary Shiva, which is, it's basically the best sounding Marshall I've ever heard on the Dirty and the best sounding Fender I've ever heard on the Clean, and it's incredible. So check that out.
Cool. Okay, we have one from Hector. He's asking, what is your favorite new band? What else are you listening to?
Man, it's probably going to surprise you. People are always kind of surprised when I start talking about this kind of stuff. What I'm listening to lately, the new Death Grips is awesome. It's real hard to swallow for a lot of people, but if you do your research about why they do it and why if you just look in and Wikipedia them and read about them, you'll find that that is a band that has done the most daring things in music business in the past. I mean, basically, they just sabotaged their own band and destroyed their own career. It was pretty incredible. But they keep coming out with music. At their peak, they stopped showing up to shows and broke up on their Facebook via Napkin. And they just put a new record out. And I guess they're not broken up. And I've been playing that a lot lately. White Denim is a really cool band for those of you guys that like the more intricate but kind of like T-Rexy, kind of proggy but real classic tones. White Denim is a real cool band. There's so many of them. There's an electronic artist called Mond Kampf. It's like a French guy, and he's incredible. Mondkompf, I believe is how you spell it. I'm leaving out so much. Whenever I get asked these kind of questions, I'm always like, I really do. I've rediscovered music, and I have been listening to a lot of really good stuff. There's this something that is probably kind of surprising to you all that know what I do. I love Toxic Dance Hall, which is like a Jamaican. It's like a real dark kind of Jamaican, like really weird throbbing beats. And there's this one artist called The Bug and a guy named Flo Dan that I like a lot. D'Anthony Parks is fun. If you guys want to see a really amazing drummer, D'Anthony Parks, he's got a great solo record out. And he was originally in a project called Asteroid Power Up from a long time ago, which is just the most awesome drumming ever. I'm gonna totally, when I stop talking about this, what I'm listening to lately, I'm gonna totally go, wow, I just didn't even really answer that question, because I will say that I was sitting at a table with my best friends, and we all looked at each other, and we all laughed because my buddy Carter was like, hey, do you guys listen to music? You know, everybody at the table's a musician, and we all laughed, and I said, no, I don't. A lot of times you fall into the habit of, when you're making music, you ignore finding new music. So I've made it a point. I'm always the guy that has like, hey, play something on your iPod or your cell phone, your iPhone, and I'm like, I don't have anything in my music library except for a bunch of demos that I've written, and so I find it very important to make sure you're always open to finding new bands and artists to listen to, whether it be old or whether it be new. I intentionally lately have been forcing myself to find new artists to listen to, because all these guitar players are complaining about, oh, rock is dead, oh, music business. There's a lot of great stuff out there. It just may not be drummers. It may not be it may not be guitar players. It may be something else. So that's all I can really think of that comes to mind. Of course, I love Depeche Mode. I love Django. I love Jimmy Rosenberg. I don't listen to a lot of guitar-oriented music. That's about as far as it goes for me for guitar-oriented music. I usually like, just really well-written songs. So check out Death Grips, check out The Bug, check out White Denim. God, I'm leaving out so many bands, but maybe if you're ever on Twitter or whatever, just shoot me a message and be like, hey, name more bands, since you forgot when you were asked. Anyways.
All right, we have one from Steven. Do you write your solos clean and then add gain? How do you write solos?
Great question. I write my solos a couple of different ways. Since when it depends. When I'm commissioned to create a guest solo for somebody, I will basically sit down, blast it out, and be done with it right there. A lot of times I have the DI. I'll use, if I'm with my engineer or a producer, I'll use whatever latest and greatest software-based guitar stuff. But it's low gain, so I can hear mistakes. If I'm not using that and I'm using like a tube amp, which is harder to play, which is good, I'll take out most of the distortion and I'll usually crank the mids and make it almost uncomfortable to play, so I can hear every note from here all the way to here. And if you're reamping it anyways, basically it's just to ensure that you played everything correctly. And if you can play everything correctly with a good feel on like a dry amplifier with no effects or no overdrive or anything, by the time you reamp it and put a gate in front of it and you're over whatever the producer does or whatever you want to do, you're going to thank yourself and you're going to thank me for telling you about this. I'm kidding. But you should definitely try that out. So when I do track my solos, you're going to find me, yes, I play lower gain, and because they're being reamped anyways. I learned that, and the reason why I don't like Axe effects and direct modeling, sorry everybody, whatever floats your boat, I'm not saying it's a bad thing just for me. I like Slayer, I like Jimi Hendrix, I like a ripping Marshall amp sound, you know, I like feedback, I like reality, I'm into that. That's what I do. That's why I'm here. And the reason why is because there was a Doth record I did a long time ago where I tracked most of my solos on an Axe Effects 1. And nobody really, I mean, when you dial it in, it's so compressed. And you could do this and beautiful music comes out. It's not cheating, it's just it's a crutch in my opinion. It's a crutch. It's way too easy to play those things. So I tracked my solos and I packed up, I tore all my rigs down, packed my guitars. I was gonna fly out, I was done. And they were reamping the last day that I was there. I was just around while I was packing up to listen to make sure that the reamping, I was satisfied with the tone. We used my Bodner like we normally do. And then they reamped it, and I heard a fat mistake that was like a 6-year-old would make, you know? And I was heartbroken because I couldn't undo it. Because when I tracked with the Axe Effects, it was so compressed and so cushy, and it covered up a little blop, what would you call it, a beep or a blip. It was a little like mistake that shouldn't have been there. So because I trusted the Axe Effects, which was something that foreign to me at that time, I shouldn't have listened to whoever was telling me to track on it, but it was convenient. I had to live with that mistake for the rest of my life, and that's a really good record, you know? And every time I hear that solo, it's one of my best solos, and there's a fat mistake right there. Most people probably wouldn't realize it, but I know, and deep down in my heart, and if I'm going to sit there for 2 months and make a record, I want it to be perfect. So that's why I don't use direct modeling to track unless I take all the compression off of it, unless I literally can hear every single nuance in the guitar from here to here. Not because I want to be cool, it's just because I want to make sure that when I play something, no matter how hard it is to play, when I get it right, it pops. It pops. It pops. That's the idea.
Okay, we have one from Mitcho. What do you think about while soloing?
It all depends. When I am playing heavy metal and I'm playing in a band where you rehearse and you're supposed to play, the fans want to hear you play the same thing every night. I rarely do that, but I don't really think about anything. I usually think relax, 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 or if I feel that I'm playing ahead, I pull back, pull back, pull back, or a lot of times I'm just watching people watch me when I'm playing rock and roll music, when it's composed. I call it painting by numbers because that's what it is. If you could write a solo on a record and you can't play it perfectly live after a whole tour, I mean, you should probably think about doing something else, because painting by numbers, you know, when you rehearse, if you're well rehearsed, it should be easy. All your stuff should be worked out. So when I'm playing in a band, like when I was playing in Doth or Chimera, when I was playing in Unearth, once I had like 2-3 weeks into the tour, you don't think about anything. All you're thinking about is don't mess up, don't mess up. I wish I could tell you I was thinking about like mathematical equations, but I'm not. I'm like, don't mess up, 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 up. Or, hey, I feel like doing this tonight. Let's play this tonight, you know. But when I'm improvising and playing, it's a different heightened sense of awareness. It's a different muscle. I'm very aware. I don't overplay. I listen, and I make sure that my ego is in check and that I'm humble and that I'm leaving space and not walking on people, and I'm doing things for the better of the situation when I improvise. And then when it's time for me to go off, I go off. You know, I blaze, I go off. But at that point, I'm usually thinking either, you know, let's say it's an A minor. I'm thinking A minor, A minor, A minor. Then I'm like, E7. Let's play off E7 now. E7. I'm playing E7. Let's resolve to A minor right there. You know, I wait for the drummer to play a fill, and I go A minor, A minor, A up, E7, build, 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 release. Like, as you can see, I'm not really thinking of anything technical. I'm just listening and trying to play my part, you know? So composed, rehearsed music, not thinking of much at all. Improvised music, I'm usually listening as hard as I can, and I'm thinking about where I'm coming from and where I'm going, which is very important, where my feet are landing. Good question. Uh-oh. Drum roll.
Okay.
Yeah. So my Secret Service guy in my ears here just told me that somebody has definitely been chosen to take home this guitar randomly, at random. So wow, very cool. So we'll go into that in just a second here. But until then, let's play some Rick Astley. I hope somebody was laughing when I busted into that. Sorry, guys. Anyways.
Okay. And here is our randomly chosen winner of the PRS guitar, Art Cavaretta. Art Cavaretta, congratulations.
Way to go, Art.
Make sure you send us your name and address and size of guitar. No, just joking. Just send us your name and your address, and we'll get in touch with you about your brand new PRS guitar. Congratulations, Art Cavaretta.
Very cool, man. So, Art Cavaretta, congratulations. You're taking this thing home. Awesome. All right. I'm going to do a little bit of noodling real quick. Just a couple more licks. Kind of winding down the day. Okay. Well, it looks like it's about that time. We've given away all of our shirts. We've given away a guitar. Thank you very, very much for paying attention to us here at JamPlay.com and checking us out. And I'm sure I can speak on behalf of the company. We really all appreciate you hanging out. Thank you coming from me in particular. I'm all over social media for the most part, so keep an eye out. You can go to www.emilwerstler.com. That's EMIL. And you can find out how to get in touch with me. You can find out where I'm at in the social media. But thank you very much for hanging out. And I truly hope that you got something out of this. If you could tell me that you learned one thing during this session or the last that you didn't know today coming into this, I would be pleased. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you around Monday, Wednesday, 8 to 10 Eastern time. I'll be on jamplay.com, Jam Chat Q&A. Till then, take it easy, guys.